Welcome back to the Money Talk podcast. I'm your host, Tristan Thomas. This is my channel, Money Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving week. If you're like me, usually I drive during Thanksgiving. I've learned that driving during the holidays can be a great time to make money. Depends on your market. But this year, I decided to chill, and I'm continuing to chill until December. December, I'm going to go extremely hard. I'm pretending that December is my January. So I've been spending these last couple of days trying to get my process together for my YouTube channel so that while I'm out there grinding, I have some goals that I'm going to share with you guys later that I can still keep up with my channel while hitting those goals. So today's topics, we're going to cover, do drivers earn more money by being picky? We're going to talk about insurance and how it actually works with Uber and Lyft. I found a great video that really breaks it down in a way that I didn't even know. We're pretty much going to be learning together how it actually works. We're going to try to solve the question of, do Uber drivers who switch to EV actually save money than driving a conventional car? We're going to dive into that, do some on-the-spot research. We're going to talk about the $2 rideshare program that's coming to a city in America. And I hope that it doesn't become a widespread thing. It could be pretty dangerous for rideshare drivers, for like Uber and Lyft drivers, that is. We're going to talk about the train derailment that led to more Uber rides. It's just a little fun one. It obviously is not going to affect everyone, but that's okay. We're going to go over to Delaware County, where we have a mayor who drives for Uber. Now, we'll go into some of the claims, but we're going to determine if he's driving because he needs that money, or is this just a tactic for him to stay in office? We're going to talk about an Uber worker who prefers working at Kohls. I know I couldn't do it. I want to go through what she's saying, how much she said she was making, and what made her prefer to work in Kohls over Uber. We're going to talk about the couple who's making 6 figures per year. That's going to be fun. A lot of people think that's not possible, but I think that it is possible with a lot of work for one person. And I think it's a lot more reasonable if you're a couple doing it too. Then we're going to talk about why rideshare drivers are worried over an EV mandate that's coming to New York City. I know we've been focused on that for a little bit, but it's a story that's worth following because New York City is looking to be the trend-setting city for rideshare. Things that happen there are sometimes things that drivers want happening everywhere else. So we'll see how that follows. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the top 5 to 10 cities. I might not do the whole 10, 5 to 10 cities to drive in based off of population and based off of how much drivers are making in those area. So let's start with the first one. Does being picky make you more money? Oh, Ron's already in the building. Only downside to Soul is you eventually have to pay for the app. I've been paying for the app just out of curiosity, but I canceled my subscription and it ends in about 7 days. So I'll be able to verify that claim very, very soon. Matt Liz says, does driving Uber make you get fat? I actually, I got fat back in January. I lost about 20 pounds just because I wasn't paying attention. And I'll share a little more about that later. So some Uber and Lyft drivers learned they can make more money if they're pickier about whom they serve. There's no guaranteed way to make money as an Uber or Lyft driver, but some drivers have found strategies that work for them. Drivers face endless decisions, including what time of day to work, what type of vehicle to use, how to net tips from your customers, and how to best track their earnings. One driver's optimal strategy can vary from another's based on their markets. That's true. Because I can tell you already, I am not picky about the rides I accept, and I make pretty good money. But one of drivers' most important decisions is when to accept a ride that pops up on their driving apps. Last year, Uber and Lyft adopted upfront fares program in select US cities that have provided drivers with more information about their trips before they accept or decline them, including how much they pay, the estimated time and distance, and their destination. Now, some drivers believe that this was just a pay cut in disguise, and I kind of agree with them, but at least you know if you're getting shafted up front or not. You can still, I will always prefer to have more information than less. Business Insider spoke with 3 drivers about when being selective with rides could boost their profits and when being less picky might be the best approach. They spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of professional repercussions. It's not that serious. Look, I'm a whole YouTuber out here throwing secrets out there. It's not that serious. Accepting rides that pay at least 80 cents a mile and prioritizing airport trips can increase pay. Maybe. maybe. Ken, a Houston Uber and Lyft driver in his mid-30s, said he drives about 4 to 5 hours a day in addition to his full-time analyst job to supplement his income. Last year, he earned a combined $25,000 driving for Uber and Lyft from about 2,000 trips, according to screenshots of earnings documents viewed by Business Insider. While he accepts most rides, he said he prioritizes trips that pay at least 80 cents to $1 a mile, excluding vehicle expenses. A ride-based pay and distance are displayed on the app. He said he also tries to avoid trips that take him too far of Houston because he worries he won't be able to find trips for the ride back. He called those empty miles. So my question to, what's his name? My question to Ken would be, in order for him to know that a trip is going to make him 80 cents to $1 after expenses, he would already in his brain need to know on average per mile what his expenses are. So I don't think it's going to tell us how he calculates that, but I'm calling a little bit of BS on that. He says, I've seen a 50-mile trip that only $20 was offered. Ken previously told Business Insider, I wouldn't be doing that. He asked that his last name not to be included for professional repercussions. Ken, who hasn't had much luck with customer tipping in recent months, said he tries to prioritize rides to and from the airport when possible because those customers are more likely to tip. I agree with this. It's not always the case, but airport goers are more likely to tip. And when they do tip, they tip better than other types of passengers. When I get a ride to the airport, I count my blessings. Being picky with trips can help drivers avoid one-way rides. Now, one-way rides, they do suck. I personally enjoy the act of driving because it gives me that mental freedom to like think about whatever I want and just like, I don't know. It's like the only thing that matters is driving. And while I'm driving, I can think about so many other different things. So sometimes like just to get a break of pace, I will take long rides, but they don't pay very well per mile. That's the truth. Bill, a part-time Uber driver in North Carolina in his early 70s, man, I hope I'm not doing Uber and Lyft that old, began driving for extra income after he retired 6 years ago. Last year, he earned more than $28,000 across roughly 1,500 Uber trips, which Business Insider verified. Let's do some quick math on that. Divided by 1,500 trips. So he's averaging about $18 per trip. That's pretty good. But he said he won't accept just any ride. I spent a lot of time saying no. Bill, who asked us to use a pseudonym and spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of professional repercussions, previously told Business Insider. Throughout his years driving for Uber, he's accepted less than 10% of his rides and canceled over 30%. That's a lot. According to a screenshot of his driver app viewed by BI, to ensure he's getting rides that are worth his time. So we can see that he did $18 per ride, $18.66 per ride, but it doesn't tell us how many hours he worked. And I have a theory that drivers who have a higher or a lower acceptance rate are probably making less money per hour, but some drivers care more about how much they make per mile and per ride, whereas other drivers care about how much they make for their time. Bill lives in an area where Uber's upfront fare programs hasn't rolled out yet, so he has limited information about the trips before he accepts them. As a result, he said he does whatever he can to avoid one-way rides that take him to remote areas where he is less likely to find another ride heading in his preferred direction. That's a valid strategy. I'll do that sometimes depending on my mood. To bypass these rides, Bill said he asked customers when he picks them up whether their destination is in the area. If they're headed out of town, he said, he often makes an excuse for why he can't drive them. That's too much work. But his approach, for me, even if I couldn't see where they were going, if I knew the time of the ride, that would be enough for me to know if this ride is taking me out of town or not. But then again, I live on the coast, so there's really, if you're in downtown Charleston, there really is only one way to go if it's a 20-minute ride. You know, you're still going to be 20 minutes from Charleston, no matter which direction it goes. But that might be different depending on how your city is mapped out. But his approach comes with some risk. Uber lists refusing or canceling a trip based on the driver's destination as something that could cause a driver to lose access to their account. Bill says he's heard of drivers being barred from airport pickups for canceling long rides, but it hasn't happened to him yet. I've seen this, but obviously it hasn't happened to me. I've seen some screenshots of it. Accepting most rides can help drivers land certain perks. Fred, a Virginia Uber driver in his early 40s, first tried Uber in 2018 but paused his driving from 2019 to 2021. He started driving again midway through 2022 and made about $44,000 in about 3,000 trips. Let's do some quick math on that again. All right, so $14.66 per ride on average in about 3,000 trips, according to a screenshot of an earnings document viewed by BI. Shout out to BI for like verifying these claims. This past September, he earned over $5,000 in 1 month, 4 weeks. Five was like maybe 120, 50. Yeah, $1,250. That's what my minimum goal is right now for my budget. Fred said his main strategy as a driver is accepting nearly every ride. Okay, sounds like me. His lifetime acceptance rate is about 84%. He said doing this gives the best chance of to retain his Uber Diamond status, which offers various benefits such as savings at select gas stations through a rewards system. Fred said the best perk of this status is dedicated customer support he receives. I wouldn't care about the customer support. I don't interact with them enough. I do keep my acceptance rate up for Lyft, not for Uber, because I get 7% cash back on gas. And that's a huge win for me. And it also gives me more usage of the stay within an area filter, which again, that's like a strategy I use to double my income. Let's take a break here to look at the comments. Ron says, did you get my comment on previous video about making a video on the changes on Uber Lyft, changing the navigational routes on rides? I did not see that. I do want to cover that. Specifically because of Uber X Share. I know it might not come to Charleston, but I do think that if they can't figure out a better way for changing rides and adding rides, like in the middle of navigating somewhere, then it's gonna like have a huge negative effect, right? Because we're gonna be paid with an expectation of miles, and if they give us a ride, but we just passed the exit, now that might add like 5 extra miles on top of that without changing the pay. So it is something that does need to be addressed. Matlist says, do you ever feel unsafe when a passenger is sitting right behind you? What can you do to avoid sketchy riders? Sometimes, and it is person to person. What I like to do is when I'm picking someone up, I try to figure out what side of the road they're on, and I try to make sure that the side I want them to sit on is closest to them, right? So even if that means going around an extra block or take an extra 2 minutes to drive in a way that puts me on the correct side of the street so they can hop into the passenger side, I'll do it. Now, if I feel unsafe, I'm a tall person. I can sometimes just be like, hey, I would like to pull my chair back some. Do you mind sitting on the other side? And they'll move. I like to start conversations when I feel like when I'm with someone unsafe. I feel like because one, me feeling unsafe isn't always justified. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's my bias. I'm picking someone from a bad neighborhood, and maybe they're having a bad day and they don't want to talk. So it could be some of me in it. And I think the fastest way to like kind of water down that situation is to just establish a human connection with that person. And of course, that's not gonna save the day when someone like intentionally wants to be nefarious with you, but it helps relieve some of that stress for me. Matt List says, Bill doesn't want sketchy riders. No, Bill does not. Ron says, is it true that drivers with the highest ratings get first dibs on out-of-state rides? I don't know. I hope not, because I don't know. I hope that's not the case. I do think that I think out-of-state rides are bad rides, right? And I think that if people are declining bad rides, eventually the people who accept all the rides are going to end up, seeing that and accepting it. So that might play a role into it. I do hope that drivers who do more on the platform, if at minimum, I would like for them to always get priority when it comes to like challenges. I know that like not everyone in the city will receive the same challenge. And if it's based off of like acceptance rate and like what you're actually doing for the platform, I think that's fair. As someone who used to be a district manager, I think it's fair to give more money to the people who are better for your platform, whatever that looks like. But I would like for them to be more open about it, Well, let's continue with the story. When I call Uber support, my call or messaging is handled promptly and professionally. I don't care about that, said Fred, who asked us to use a pseudonym and spoke on the condition of anonymity for fair or professional repercussions. Or Fred said that he understood why a driver who doesn't care about these extra benefits will reject rides that don't seem profitable. This is more common. More people are not like Fred. All right, so we reached the end of that episode of that story. So let's get the next one ready. Matt Lee says, do you make the most? Hold on, let me close this out. Do you make the most dollars per hour picking up people outside of bars on the weekend. So Matt, yeah, that's where the money is. That's where it's surging. You're gonna get a bunch of short rides. A lot of times, people who go to the bars will take a car to another bar that's like 2-3 minutes away. But in my city, a lot of those people sometimes are tourists, so in their brain, they don't even know how far or close something really is. But like on a Saturday, I found that it's the busiest in Charleston. I can make on the low end $35 an hour. On the high end, like if there's a concert plus regular bar like activities, I can probably touch in like 50, 55, sometimes $60 an hour. I can't do that every week, right? It's more in the middle. It's more like $40 an hour on a Saturday, Friday night, depending if the college student, like, so the college students have to be here. The wedding season has to be like happening. The weather can be hit or miss. The weather can be hit or miss. The worse the weather is, the more money I'll make sometimes, but it could even be great weather. People just don't want to walk. So some of that plays a role into it. But like in Charleston in December, when the college students are gone, when the like elementary school, high school kids are out of school, it becomes harder to make that kind of money. So our dry period is going to be during winter, but it depends on where you live, right? You have to understand your market. If you live in Colorado, it might be ski season, right? That might be the better time for you to work when it's snowing and other drivers aren't feeling like working. Ron says, would you want a rider going out of state be paired with a driver with low rating? No, that is a good point. I wouldn't want to pair long distance rides with drivers with low rating if I worked at Lyft or Uber. So that is a great point. Vinny says, good day, man. Welcome to the show. Hope you enjoy. We just finished talking about if drivers earn more by being picky. We're going to move on to understanding how insurance works with Uber and Lyft. I have a confession. I don't have rideshare insurance, and I've started to I've started to like pay attention to that. Like I need to get it. I haven't even priced it out. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to call a bunch of insurance companies. I'm going to try to get it priced out. I'm going to try to talking to them to see what they're looking for, how to keep this price down, what I should do. And I'm going to try to get that all on camera for you guys. But I do think, depending on the price point, I think it's important to have rideshare insurance. So they do have a video. We'll watch the video and then we'll jump into what the article actually says.
Can your insurance company refuse to pay?
That's the exact issue currently afflicting a Cedar City woman who decided it was time to get Gephardt.
So I was pulling out of a parking lot.
The trouble for Tabitha Ventry started when she could not see around a van that was parked on the street.
And then I pulled up a little bit more, stopped, and that's when I was hit.
That collision, 6,006 for Tabitha Ventry started when she could not see around a van that was parked on the street.
And then I pulled up a little bit more, stopped, and that's when I was hit.
That collision caused $6,600 worth of damage. Now, Tabitha has car insurance, but when she tried to file a claim, she was denied. Why?
Because they said that I was ride sharing.
Yeah, Tabitha makes extra money driving for Uber. And at the time of the accident,
I was on the app, but I didn't have anybody in my car at the time.
Tabitha's insurance company told her that her policy does not cover her when she's driving for a rideshare company, and simply being logged into the app counts. Uber does provide insurance for their drivers, but they are also telling Tabitha that she is on her own. All
right, so to summarize so far, she was on the app. She's online. I guess she's waiting for a ride. She's not on the way to a passenger, and she gets into an accident, and Uber is saying that they will not cover her, and neither will her personal insurance, because she didn't have rideshare insurance and because she was on the app when it happened.
In a coverage gap between Uber and her personal policy, she decided it was time to call me.
And that's where that big gap arises a lot of times.
I asked Brent Thurman of Keystone Insurance to weigh in on Tabitha's case. He says that when it comes to driving for rideshare, insurance companies see it as 3 distinct periods. Period 1, where the driver has the app turned on but has not yet been assigned a passenger. Period 2, where the driver is on his or her way to pick up a passenger they've been assigned. And period 3, where the driver has the passenger in their car. Now, Uber does provide drivers with insurance for periods 2 and 3 with both comprehensive and collision coverage. But Tabitha was in period 1.
So that's really unfortunate. I don't know how Lyft approaches this. I want to, get in contact with their support and see how it is. But, 3 periods. The first period is your app is on, but you're not on the way to a passenger and there's no passenger in your car. The second period is your app is on, you have a ride that you're on the way to, you are covered for that. For Uber, we need to figure out if Lyft covers that as well. And then period 3 is when the passenger's in your car, you're covered for that as well. So let's see what else they're saying in here in the article. So she got hit $6,600 in damage, and she's on the hook for all of that. You know, that's not a small amount of money. It's a good chunk of change. So I do think Uber needs to be more forthcoming with this information. I think it's the fact that I just found out today in itself is a problem. So I assume that there are other drivers who are just like this, who are just now finding out. So she only has liability, and that will not fix her car. Personal insurance policies by default are only going to want to cover personal use, which makes sense. They're going to default by excluding any business use at all. Thurman says when rideshare sharing first hit the scene, many insurance companies flat out refused coverage, or it was significantly more expensive. So this is why I haven't even looked into it. I just assume my rate would be extremely high, but I think I might be wrong. I might be basing my assumption off of how things were when they first started, like years ago. Most drivers wanted to drive for Uber and Lyft had to get regular commercial policies like you would find with a taxi or limo type service. But 10, 15 years later, there are countless affordable options, he says. So I really do need to look into it. If your agent doesn't provide it, I would check around the market. I'm going to do that just for you guys. As for Ventry, we also reached out to Uber. They would not comment on her situation, referring us to her personal insurance company. And that puts me in a really bad spot. So this is really unfortunate. We're going to use AI. This one is created by Google. And you can see down here, it says it may display inaccurate information. So like if we think something's inaccurate, we'll double check and look into it. But let's, what is the deductible for Uber and Lyft drivers in case of accident? The deductible for Uber and Lyft drivers in case of an accident varies depending on the specific accident, the driver's coverage, and the state in which the accident occurs. However, in general, Uber and Lyft drivers are responsible for paying the deductible on their personal auto insurance policy before their ride-sharing company's insurance kicks in. That doesn't sound accurate. All right, let's just do a Google search. What is Uber's deductible for insurance? Okay. So this is coming straight from Uber's website. Insurance for rideshare drivers using Uber. Offline or the driver app is off. Your chosen personal insurance company and coverage applies. All right, so it's on the website. They're not forthcoming with this information. You have to go and search it out, which is, that's on us, but it's on the website. Available or waiting for a ride request. Uber maintains the following auto insurance on behalf in case of a covered accident. Third-party liability if your personal auto insurance doesn't apply. So, okay, the AI was right. They will go through your personal auto insurance first. $50,000 in bodily injury per person, $100,000 in bodily injury per accident, $25,000 in property damage per accident, and route to pick up riders and during trips. Uber maintains the following auto insurance on behalf in case of a covered accident. $1 million third-party liability. That's great. So that means the passenger won't sue you, and if they do sue you, they can only get up to $1 million. Uninsured, underinsured motorist, bodily injury, or first-party injury insurance. Contingent, comprehensive, and collision. Insurance for delivery people. Oh, so delivery is different. Offline is the same rules. This looks like the same amount. And route to pick up deliveries. Excluding accidents occurring in New York State. This is interesting. All right, so let's see. Hold on. These personal auto insurance carriers offer additional rideshare delivery coverage options in your state. Okay, so here's a couple. I have Progressive, so I'm gonna call all of these and like see which one is the best one, and I'll list that out in a video. We have Allstate. Extends your personal auto insurance into the time you're online with Uber waiting for a trip. Matches your deductible while you're online with Uber if you purchase comprehensive collision protection for damages to your car. Includes roadside assistance. So all right. Okay, so I mean, just based off of words, Allstate has more words, so it's probably better. This is what I have. They're pretty much the same. So I'll have to do a deeper dive. this is pretty cool. If steps for if you're ever in a crash, check that you, the rider, and the other parties are safe. Step 2, call 911 if necessary. Always call 911 unless you're at fault. But having a police report is pretty important for determining who is and isn't at fault. Step 3, contact support. And I would always call if there's a passenger in your car, period. Because they may lie and try to... Don't think of passengers as your friends. A lot of people will make that mistake. Contact support in the app by going to help, and then trip issue adjustments, and I was in an accident. You can also submit a crash report here. I probably wouldn't do this unless there's someone in my car or it happened while I was in the app. If I'm off the app and this happens, I'm not gonna like risk my account by telling them. What is Lyft's deductible for rideshare drivers? If a driver obtains comprehensive and collision coverage on their personal auto policy, Lyft then maintains contingent comprehensive and collision coverage up to the actual cash value of the car, $2,500 deductible. So it seems to be the exact same as Uber. I assume they're probably insured by the same company. Our third-party auto liability insurance is designed to act as a primary coverage from the time you accept a ride request until the time the ride has ended. So just like Uber, there is at least 1 million coverage per accident. Note, if you already carry commercial insurance or personal coverage providing specific coverage or for ride sharing, Lyft's policy will be excess to your insurance coverage. So that's kind of cool. But you still might be required to hit 2 different deductibles. But that's still good. So I guess it's called contingent collision. As long as you have attained collision coverage on your personal automobile, the contingent so you have to have insurance, period. Like personal, like Lyft will only insure you if you had personal insurance. So you can't just like pick a passenger up, not have any insurance, get in an accident, and think Lyft's gonna help you out. You'll be in an even worse position. So make sure you always have insurance at minimum. Even if it's not rideshare insurance, you need to have insurance. I mean, it's like illegal for you not to have insurance. Okay, so I'll do a deeper dive into this. I'll probably make a dedicated video where, you know, I'm just calling all these different places, getting the best prices, seeing what they offer, and maybe I'll try to go into the community, seeing what their experiences were, try to get some interviews. We'll see. I'm going to jump into the comments for a second. And then we're going to talk about, do Uber drivers who switch to EV actually save money? So Matt says, what is considered a bad rider rating? I think anything less than 4.8. Occasionally you'll meet people who are having bad days, or sometimes you as a driver will be having a bad days. You'll make mistakes and someone will give you a bad ride. But I know on Lyft, your ratings are based off of your last 100 rides. So you really shouldn't be getting like 5 stars default. You know, like if no one says anything about you, it's considered a 5-star. So anything like below a 4.8 as a driver is pretty low. And for passengers, I would say anything below a 4.5 is pretty low. You have some passengers who are kind of needy, and they might just, so if you don't want to match with a passenger or with a driver, if you rate them 2 or lower, you'll never get them again. And sometimes it's just like indifferences, right? It could just be they don't like the way you drive, even though you drive safely, or they don't like the way your car smelled, even though it smells nice, you know? So it's like sometimes people will just unmatch with you, and that can like kind of tank your score a little bit. I don't get too caught up on it. But if someone has like a consistently bad score, that's the only way to get like 4.5, 4.3 or below 4. Then that person is probably a problematic person. Probably someone who, you know, brings kids without a car. You know, people don't want to get matched with that, so they give them a low rating. So you have to do a lot wrong to have a consistently bad rating. Yeah, Ron, 4.6 or below is bad driver rating. Ron asks, have you had problems on Lyft platform during concerts with random people jumping in your car claiming they are the rider? I haven't had that at a concert. The worst I've had is where I was at the airport. There are 2 Jettas. They look just like identical, both gray, and I can understand why someone would mix them up. What I always do is I turn around, I look them in the eye. Are you so-and-so? Are you Jennifer? And they'd be like, yes, that's exactly what happened. And then so the wrong passenger got in my car, and then my passenger got in the other Jetta, And it wasn't until I was on the bridge heading towards Mount Pleasant that she's like, "Oh, why are you going to Mount Pleasant? I don't live this way." And then I repeat her name, RUXYZ. She says, "No." I said, "Well, you said yes to that earlier." Whatever. I ended up taking her home. I canceled the ride because I didn't want the other person to get charged. So I don't know what happened to her ride and her payment, but I took a huge L on that. And I just make sure it doesn't happen again. But I don't pick up people from concerts until maybe an hour and a half after the concert. Like when it's like has died down. I don't like getting stuck in traffic out by the concerts. So I'll use my area filter just to make sure I'm staying away from that area. If you're sitting in traffic, you're losing money. Beauty with Essence says, hello. That's the only good thing about a rental is that you can get insurance on the rental besides it being so high in price. That's a great point. And I was this week, like maybe yesterday, I was trying to see if I can get a rental, not because I need one, but because I want to make a video. And I believe that to have the best opinion on something, you have to actually experience it. But they don't offer rentals through Uber in Charleston, which is the city I drive in. I'd have to go to Atlanta to get it done. And I still might do that video and take some time, but that not having to have rental insurance is something I did not consider when considering the cost analysis of renting versus not renting. So that is something that I will have to consider. So thank you for making that point. Ron says, I've seen 3.9 ratings for a rider before. It's terrible. Ron says, always confirm the destination with the rider before starting the ride. That is a great point. I can do that. Some people can't because not everyone has access to upfront pay. All right, so moving forward, do Uber drivers who switch to EVs actually save money? Let's find out. So this article, it comes from it's a little biased, but it's okay. It's okay. It's from Yale Climate Connections. Wesley Johnson is an Uber driver in San Francisco. For years, he picked up passengers in his Mercedes, and he spent a lot on fuel, right? On fuel. This is already a red flag for me right here. I was spending like $1,600, nothing less, a month for gas. Plus, he had to deal with wear and tear on his car, which can be pricey. So when he heard that Uber and Hertz had partnered on a program to rent out electric vehicles on Uber and Lyft, Johnson was eager to give it a try. He's one of 50,000 US drivers who've rented a Tesla through the program since it launched 2 years ago. He says he pays less to rent the Tesla than he did on gas. All right, so he spent $1,600 a month on gas, and he's saying he spent less than $1,600 a month for the Tesla. He's saving on the cost of repairs and maintenance, and as an Uber driver, he gets a discount at some charging stations. The money part, Johnson says, the money part, it was a no-brainer for me. But the benefits of the program go beyond drivers' finances. Johnson says a lot of his passengers are excited to ride in an EV and curious for his thoughts on the car. Johnson says, and so they ask, give me some pointers about the car, tell me the pros and cons, and so, yeah, we have good conversations like that. So by getting more EVs on the road and giving people the chance to ride in one, the program could help more people decide to make the switch to a cleaner vehicle. So the problem I have with this article, especially with it coming from Yale, is that there's not enough information here, right? We don't know how much he's paying a week for his Tesla. We don't know how much he's paying to charge the Tesla. We don't know how much he was paying before for his Mercedes. Now, let's go back to some AI, right? What is the average yearly repair cost for a Mercedes? The average yearly repair cost for Mercedes-Benz is around $908. This is higher than the industry average of $600, but is still lower than the average yearly repair cost for other luxury vehicle brands such as BMW, $968, and Audi, $987. I have an Audi. I've only had one issue with it so far, and it cost me $600 to fix. Nothing crazy. And I'm at 130,000 miles, and I had it at 500 miles. So I'm pretty happy with it. The specific repair costs for Mercedes will vary depending on the model, year, and mileage of the car. However, some of the most common repairs for Mercedes-Benz cars include oil change, tire rotations, battery replacements, brake pad replacements. In addition to these common repairs, Mercedes-Benz can also have more expensive repairs, such as engine repairs and transmission repairs. These repairs can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 or more. So we all know having a Mercedes is, more expensive. And a lot of drivers, let's be real, we never really planned on being Uber and Lyft drivers. So typically the first car we have when we start it isn't usually the best car. Like if I had planned to be a driver, or if the car I would replace my current car with, if something were to happen to it, would be a Prius, to be real. So he did start off with an expensive car, right? A car that was one, expensive in price and probably used premium gas, and then is also higher than average for repairs, like over $300 more. Compare this to the cost of renting a Tesla. Let's see what it says. The average yearly repair cost for a Tesla is around $829. However, since he's renting it, he wouldn't have to really like worry about that. So if you plan on buying one, that's something you need to consider. This is lower than the average yearly repair cost for a Mercedes-Benz, which is around $908. However, it's still higher than the industry average of $600. The specific repair cost for a Tesla will vary depending on the model, year, and mileage of the car. However, some of the most common repairs for Teslas include tire rotations, wheel alignments, battery replacements. This is a lie. I'm pretty sure it's $10,000 for battery replacement. Drive unit replacements. Maybe this is where the numbers got mixed up. In addition to these common repairs, Tesla can also have more expensive repairs, such as repairs to the autopilot system. That's kind of whatever. I'm not gonna hold that against renters or people who might buy the car. So, what is the most efficient car for rideshare? The most efficient car for rideshare are hybrids and electric vehicles. I'm team hybrid. I believe in the Prius. These cars can get significantly better fuel economy than traditional gasoline-powered cars, which can save you money on fuel costs in the long run. Here are some of the most efficient cars. So Toyota Prius. Let's do a comparison for Prius and Tesla for rideshare drivers. The Toyota Prius and Tesla Model 3 are both popular choices for rideshare drivers, but they have different strengths and weaknesses. Here's a comparison of the two cars. Fuel economy. The Prius is a hybrid car that gets an EPA estimated 56 miles per gallon. God damn. In the city and 58 miles per gallon on the highway. The Model 3 is an electric car that gets an EPA estimated 146 miles per gallon I don't know what that is, which is equivalent to about 134 miles per gallon for a gasoline powered car. This means that Model 3 is significantly more fuel efficient than the Prius and can save you a lot more money on fuel costs if you drive a lot of miles. I'm gonna call BS on that in a second, but we'll continue. The Prius has a range of about 25 miles on electric power alone, and it switches over to its gasoline engine. This means that you can drive the Prius in electric mode for most short trips, and you won't have to worry about running out of gas. The Model 3 has a range of 267 miles, so you can drive much longer. Okay, so I want to take this. 267 miles. How much does it cost at a supercharger to go 267 miles in a Tesla? The cost of charging a Tesla Model 3 at a supercharger to go 267 miles will vary depending on electricity rates. However, as of October 2023, the average cost of a supercharged electricity is 29 cents per kilowatt hour. The Tesla Model 3 has a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it gets an average of 250, I don't even know what that means, watt hours per mile, I'm assuming. This means that it will take about 66 kilowatt hours of electricity to go 267 miles. At the average supercharged electricity rate of 29 cents per kilowatt hour, it will cost about $19.35 to charge a Tesla Model 3 for 267 miles. So about $20 to go 267 miles. How much does it cost for a Prius to go 267 miles in gas? Assuming you're driving a Toyota Prius with an average fuel economy of 52 miles per gallon, it would cost approximately $17.97 to drive 267 miles using gas. This is calculated based on an average gas price of $3.50 per gallon. Here's the breakdown. Average gas price in America. It's a nice, AAA has a wonderful map where you can quickly see what gas prices are like. So I live over here in South Carolina, where gas is $2 and 91 cents. For me, it usually ends up being about $2.40 just because I use Get Upside and I get 7% cash back with my Lyft debit card. So that would be even better for me. So, but even if you consider the average, well, the average that it gave us was what, 350, and the average is actually down. So we just did the math, and from a gas to electricity standpoint, having a Prius is still cheaper per mile just for the gas. We're not talking about maintenance than it is for a Tesla. So I think that's pretty important. And then as rideshare drivers, I would hate to be at this. If I were to drive, sometimes I can drive up to 800 miles a day. Like I run it like that. I'd have to be at a supercharger 3 times per day, and that would eliminate me from most long trips. Sometimes I take long trips. Sometimes I go from Charleston to Charlotte. Sometimes I go from Charleston to Savannah, not as long. I've even driven from Key West, Florida, all the way to Maine doing rideshare. Like not one trip, like I did different trips on the way up. And doing that in a Tesla would absolutely, like, I would have so much anxiety over range. Now, I do want a Tesla for personal use, but I would never buy a Tesla for rideshare. At least not unless they make having an electric car like mandatory. All right, so I'm gonna check out some of these comments. Ron says Uber does the pin system for most big events, while Lyft, you can have tipsy people jump in your cars and will say yes to whatever the name of the rider is on the screen. Happened to me multiple times in my early years. So what you could do is you could just ask them to confirm your name, right? If they don't know the name of the driver, I need you to get out, or don't even unlock your wind your windows down. Hey, are you XYZ? Oh, you are? What's my name then? You know, you can do that two-way confirmation. Beauty with Essence says I drive a Tesla EV, but I rent it. I do think so. I think that if you have to renting a car is better than not having one and doing rideshare, right? Obviously. But I do think your goal should be to like save up and buy something. Like do like work as much as you can. Try to come up with like $10,000. Go get a used Prius and then just use the Prius. I honestly believe that you can use renting as a stepping stone, but you don't want to live in that cycle. You definitely don't want to live as a business owner. You want to do whatever you can to lower your expenses while maximizing profits as much as possible. So I do want to rent a Tesla so I can have a better opinion on this, but for now, that's where I have to leave it at. Mike says Toyota stepped down as Toyota. Sorry, threw me off. Toyota stepped down as president CEO from Toyota partly because the company was critical of his belief in hybrids being more practical, and he was right. Sales are up. Okay, that is true and that is accurate. Let's just do a quick search. Are hybrids better than fully electric cars? I should have put that in barred. Without gas engines, EVs don't need oil changes and overall maintenance. I'm gonna throw this in barred instead. I do think like there needs to be a transition period because they're like the grid isn't strong enough to support these cars. We like last week we covered the story, like New York doesn't have like only has like 10% of the amount of like superchargers they would need before 2030 in order to like we'll touch a little bit more on that later. There's a story about New York in here that covers all that mess, and we'll touch back on it a little later. Assuming you're driving a Toyota Prius with an average fuel economy of 52 miles per gallon, it will cost we just did this. Here we go. Determining whether hybrids or fully electric cars are better depends on various factors, including individual needs, driving habits, and environmental consideration. Here's a comparison of the two vehicle types. All right, we know this stuff. Range, maintenance costs. You know what? I don't know how to go about this. I'll just keep reading the comments. The cost, Beauty with Essence says the cost of Tesla a week is $457 or $500 a week, depending on how many rides you have. Assume charging is $100 a week. That's not bad, but let's do. I'm gonna take that lower number, 457 times 52. So that's that. You could have bought 2 used Priuses for that amount, right? And we didn't even touch on you. So like, charging at home will probably be the cheapest way to charge, but it's also slower, which it's fine. I'm not gonna hold that against. But you said $100, so let's do plus. That is not a plus. plus 100 times 52. So it's too difficult to calculate what that would be in gas, but this is still cheaper than I would say renting a Tesla. It might still be better than owning a Tesla. The prices of electric vehicles, period, are just too high. I do think there will come a time where the prices are low enough to make me start thinking Tesla or Prius. But right now, one, because you can get a used Prius, right? The used Prius market is pretty strong just because, one, the Prius has been around longer, and Toyotas can last up to 300,000 miles. Like, especially the Prius, that's like the average. You might have to replace the battery for about $6,000 in between that time. But I would still rather buy a used Prius for $15,000 than a used Tesla for $30,000, because then I still would have to make another $15,000 before I could justify the purchase. So I'm starting to lean towards renting a Tesla is better than buying a Tesla, but buying a used Prius, I think, is still better than those two options. That's in the tires on a Tesla is terrible because they pop too much. I heard, does Tesla come with spare tires? I'm gonna go to Bard. There's just there's too much information on the internet, and Bard is just a good way to skip through them. Does Tesla come with spare tires? I heard a rumor. I never looked into it. No, Tesla does not come with a spare tire as standard equipment. This is because Tesla cars are designed to be as lightweight and efficient as possible. This is a huge L. Huge L. And a spare tire adds weight and reduces range. Tesla does offer a spare tire kit as an optional accessory, but it's not included with the base car, the price. The spare tire kit includes a compact spare tire, a jack, a lug wrench, and a carrying case. The spare tire is a space saver. Do Tesla car rentals come with a spare tire for Uber drivers? Okay, so it depends on the rental company. I've gone through so many nails in my tires that I've now learned how to fix my own tire within like 45 minutes and go right back on the road and start driving. That's how often I get a nail in my tire. So that would be a concern for me. Ron says, my name is on my Uber sign in my windshield, helps riders identify my car since Sentras are fairly common. That's a good plan. I like that. I might have to add that to something I do. Vinny says, depends on your location, as some cities do support the infrastructures for EVs, make it more affordable. Kinda, right? I'll show you later. Tracy says, I sold my BMW for a Prius and it's the best decision I ever made. That, as far as rideshare goes, I think you made an excellent decision, and you probably could have bought like a Prius and a half for whatever you sold your BMW for. Now, so I bought my car for 2017 Volkswagen Jetta. I'll show you guys. So this is it. Looks just like this. I bought it for $13,000 right before the pandemic hit, and it had 500 miles on it. Now, it was like a dealer special where, you know, if you go to a dealership, something's wrong with your car, this is the car they were giving to those customers to like get around for the day. So didn't have a lot of miles. It was pretty well taken care of. And that specific dealership, they mainly sold, it was an Audi dealership. So they mainly sold brand new Audis. That's who their customer base was. So it was just sitting in their lot. They kept marking down the price, and I just got a really good deal on it. Now I have 130,000 miles on it. Selling it doesn't make sense. But eventually, when I'm out of debt next year, what I want to do is I want to buy a Prius, and then I'll use the Prius for rideshare, and then I'll put my Volkswagen Jetta on Toro. Well, I might actually put my wife's car on Toro because I think this car will have too much miles for them. I did see a comment where someone said the Prius is too small. Also, the Prius has much less space. I say depending on overall needs. So there is a big Prius. I think it's called the Prius 5. Prius 2, Prius V. So Prius 5, but it's like Prius V, and it has more space inside. So it's still not going to be as big as like, you know, an SUV or something like that. But If I were to get a Prius, this is the one I'm aiming for. Before we even look for that Prius 5, I want to I can't get over how sick the new Prius looks. This is the 2024 Prius. I'll never get a brand new car for rideshare, but I really like the Prius 2024 yellow. It's so nice looking. Look at it. It's so sick. But I would never buy a brand new car, so I'm never walking into a dealership and getting one of those. But let's look at, I don't know, Prius 2018. These are a little bigger. They have a lot more trunk space, which you're gonna need if you're picking up passengers and you want to do airport runs. So yeah, I do feel you. There are small Priuses, like you have the Prius C, which you can't even use on a platform because it's so small. But if you're concerned about space, the Prius V or 5, I don't really know which one it is. That'd be the way to go. And unlike gas cars, there's no that area where the transmission, I think, I don't know really know what I'm talking about, goes across like the car. There's none of that. So there's a little more leg room or foot room if you have someone sitting in the middle. BD with Essence says you can save more with the Prius. Seems to be better to drive Prius. Can you do comfort with the Prius? No, you can't do comfort with the Prius. Ron says, just to let you know my secrets to increase in tips in Charleston. Give out postcards with landmarks to riding visitors Charleston for first time. So I've thought about doing something similar. I've actually thought about doing a package where they can rent me as their driver for the day. And I have a camera. I make YouTube videos. I'm pretty decently versed in photography, well enough to where I could create a photography package where I'll take you to these different landmarks. I'll take pictures of you and your family or whatever, and then I could just sell them to that as a package. But that's a good. Your idea is better from a less work standpoint. That is a good way to do it. Mike says, here in CA we have Ford Drive and can be used for rideshare. Lisa Mach E for $299 a week, unlimited miles. $199 a week for 500 miles. $299 a week, unlimited miles. That's probably the best renting situation I've seen. Lease. I'm not a huge fan of leasing. I'm a Dave Ramsey guy, so not a huge fan of leasing. All right, so enough with the comments for now. We're going to go on to the next topic. But my overall consensus currently, without actually driving these things on my own, is renting a Tesla seems to be cheaper than owning a Tesla in the short term. Because eventually, if you rent that Tesla so often for so many amount of years, then eventually the rental price of the Tesla is going to eclipse the cost of just owning the Tesla. We did the math. It was still under $30,000 in the first years, charging and price of rental included. So I think if your plan is to just do that for a year or less, it might be better to just rent the Tesla. And today's the first time I've actually admitted that out loud. So maybe only owning a Tesla if you plan on doing this for 2 years plus, which I hope that's no one's goal. But I'm still very pro Prius. But try to buy it in cash. I know that's not everyone's thing. That's my thing. But I think that your business will cash flow better if you make decisions based on cash. All right, so the $2 rideshare program. This one I thought was interesting. Don't worry if you're not in Tampa, you don't have to worry about this. But if you are in Tampa, this is something that you should be paying attention to. Tesla recently launched a rideshare service that will cost riders only $2 per person. Dash, which stands for Downtown Area Shared Hubs, debuted in Tampa, Florida on October 12th. Unlike other rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft, Dash doesn't take people directly to their location. Instead, there are more than 20 hubs throughout the 7 downtown Tampa neighborhoods. Each vehicle is a bright yellow Tesla Model Y that will take riders from one hub to another with a capacity of 4 riders at $2 a piece. Now, for drivers who live in Tampa, this might not cut into majority of their business, but I can see this as a cost, an efficient cost saving way for people who might be local and know about it, So this is what they look like. I believe Tesla's partnering with the actual city. They weren't very clear on that. So I'm really hoping from a driver perspective that this doesn't come to other cities. But to be honest, as someone who visits other cities, this is a pretty cool thing to have. It's kind of like a shuttle service, but with Teslas, and it's better than a shuttle service with buses because there's less strangers in your car. We have seen neighborhoods in downtown, so they gives you the opportunity to come into downtown, stay in one spot with your vehicle, then bounce around via Dash. Dash drivers will be more than just an escort from one place to another. They'll be more like train guides. After passing a background check, drivers will receive extensive safety and driver training, along with training as an expert guide to downtown's 7 unique neighborhoods. I wonder how much they'll get paid. That's my next big question. Dash driver Rico Dixon is excited about the development and opportunity. How cool is it that we get to drive Teslas around downtown Tampa? I'm not saying that was a major motivator, but it's not a bad deal. I agree, but it depends on the money. Like it depends on how much you're going to be paying these drivers. Dixon also realizes the positive environmental impact of having an all-electric fleet of rideshare vehicles. It's also great because I assume they don't have to own the vehicle. So their pay per hour might be lower than what a rideshare driver makes, but they're probably going to be employees. They're not going to be independent contractors. So they're probably just not even going to have any overhead. So again, it's going to really come down to the price and how many vehicles are out there, how many like passengers they're servicing. $2 is really low. They'll probably increase it over time. And so quick little story, we'll move forward. So there's a train derailment that I find this interesting, not because of the train derailment, not because it led to more Uber rides, it's because the city doesn't agree with Uber about like the ramifications of what's happened. So this was in Toronto. I didn't even know they had a train derailment. So Uber highlights incredible increase in riders after Scarborough RT derailment. The TTC, which I assume is like Toronto, says it does not believe increased Uber usage in the last 3 months is from the derailment. Uber says passengers' demand in Scarborough has grown nearly 3/4 since the Scarborough Rapid Transit System went offline in July following a train derailment that injured 5 people. I kind of want to see it. Scarborough train derailment. Let's see if we can get a quick video on it.
We now know what caused a train derailment. We now know what caused a train derailment here on the SRT back in July. The Toronto Transit Commission confirming
If the volume's low, it's not me. It's the video's audio itself.
Today that bolts holding down power rails came loose, and this is sparking a lot of questions about safety on the transit system.
To summarize our investigation, through the process, we have identified that the running rails and the vehicles are not contributing factors to the derailment. The immediate cause of the derailment are these failed reaction rail anchor bolts.
It's a little bit scary.
Yeah, it's scary. That seems like something that's easy to fix as well. The rideshare company says its own data reveals trip growth was 72% higher in Scarborough than the rest of Toronto when comparing 3 months after July 24th derailment with the 3 months before. That's pretty damning, right? I think that's, so there's causation and there's correlation, right? This leans to me, it jumps out as causation. Uber says trips to and from Kennedy Station alone increased by 29% over the same period, an incredible increase, said Laura Miller, the company's director of public policy and communications. Uber released the data points earlier this week following months of concern from transit advocates and others that if the TTC couldn't produce a robust transit plan for Scarborough, one that is extensive, reliable, and frequent, transit users may change their habits perhaps to Uber. And if I'm an Uber driver in Canada right now, I'd be loving this. I'd be enjoying this so much. The surges must be extremely high in those areas. In fact, even if I live maybe 45 minutes to an hour away, I drive just to this area to drive for until they fix whatever it is they need to fix. The rideshare patterns we've seen are not consistent with Line 3 user patterns. And this is someone from Toronto, city council or whatever. We don't have any data that supports the theory that TTC customers who use Line 3 are using rideshare. This is what I find funny. It's you have information that kind of points heavily to that being the case, and then the city's nah, that's not true, and we're not going to tell you why we believe that. As of November 19th, it has implemented a more extensive bus plan, including 7 different routes between Scarborough Center and Kennedy Station. So apparently the train is still not working, but they put more buses out there, and they expect people to just be more willing to learn how the buses go. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I just see interesting and how Uber and in the city like just have two completely different conclusions, even though Uber's data is pretty damning. All right, so we'll jump to the comments for a second. So Vinny says, "This is a great discussion, Tristan. I appreciate it. I don't know which discussion specifically. I assume it's about the Tesla, and I want to have more conversations about renting. I believe there's a hierarchy of if you just start with your feet, what can you do to get into a car? And then once you get into that car, even if it's a rented car, what can you do to get out of that rented car? I believe like everyone's at different parts in life, different like financial situations. And I'm glad that it's becoming easier. I'm glad that people have the ability to become an Uber and Lyft driver. It might hurt my pockets and, you know, might make it a little harder, but I believe the rising tide lifts all boats. I'm very pro if people are struggling and they're willing to put the hours in to change your life, that they should have the opportunity to do so. So I'm glad that they can go out and rent cars and go and make money and go out earn other people. But you still need to make sure like it's a business. You need to keep your expenses as low as possible while making the most money as possible. Beauty says, no, they don't come with spare tires. That sucks. Man, I'd almost want to buy my own spare tire just for the sake of it, because that's a huge L. That if you have to get your car towed, even if the rental place pays for all of that, getting your car towed, whatever, getting you into a new car. If it's 4 a.m. in the morning, you now have to wait till businesses are back open again to even like start the conversation. Like the last time I popped my tire, I was at the airport. It was like 3 a.m. and I was able to get my spare tire on, plug the hole, right? And then get it to the gas station, fill it back up, put it back on the car, and then continue driving. This was all while I was actually making a video for it where I was trying to make $700 in 24 hours. And like, I would not have hit that goal if I wasn't capable of like having a spare tire and fixing my own tire. Ron says, yeah, right. Try to fit two golf bags in the trunk of a Prius. Well, I have never in person seen a Prius 5, so I would have to first see it in person to really understand what can and can't fit in there. It's not a year-long lease. It's a weekly lease, or it's by month. Okay, if it's by month, that's pretty good. That's pretty good pricing. Vinny says we have similar program in Fort Lauderdale and Sunrise. 6 Model X's. Okay. I drive through Florida a lot. I'm usually on the East Coast, so I'm gonna have to look out for those next time I'm down in that area. BD with Essence says Hertz recently announced that they're backing away from EV because of the cost of maintenance is too high. Interesting. I'm assuming it's the battery replacement. That must be it. And I guess rideshare drivers are putting miles on these things. I did hear that Hertz is selling cars. I heard another YouTuber, what is it, Arizona AZ Uber driver, something like that. He was talking about how Hertz is selling off their like used cars, but he was saying that they're overpriced and probably not that great. Luke says, oh my God, my favorite YouTuber is live. What's up, Luke? How are you doing? Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, man. All right, so we're going to move on. We just did train derailment. We're going to look at the Delaware County mayor who drives for Uber. So this one is a video. And when we watch the video, I'm going to look up how much money he makes to determine if he's doing it because he needs the money. Government officials don't always get paid very well. Or is he doing this to get votes? And if we'll see. Let's see what he has to say.
Lansdowne, you could show up to a council meeting, maybe send an email, or...
I love it. I love it.
It's passion for the pickup.
So driving for me is therapeutic. All right? Hello?
Joe Bland's official job is serving the people of the borough.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see what we got.
His side gig involves a different seat.
So let's see what that ride was.
Let's see what we got.
All I see is the $10.
Serving the people of the borough.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see what we got.
His
side gig, the $10. Can't even see the rating.
Involves a different seat.
I know some mayors, host town hall events. They host coffee and tea events, chat and chew events. You know what I mean? So, but this to me is different.
A way to connect while cruising.
I'm going to you. I'm picking you up.
Now, it wasn't his idea.
My colleague said, hey, you like driving? Try rideshare. So I said, you know what? I think you're crazy. Let's get our luggage.
But in time, Pat, nice to meet you, Pat. I'm Joe.
He has racked up hundreds of rides.
There you go. Tush in, and then you slide on over. There you go.
I wouldn't be touching the passenger.
Stellar approval.
Okay, he has a 5-star. What is this acceptance rate? 43 acceptance rate is pretty low. 5% cancellation. 812 trips over 5 months. What is that? Quick math. 812 trips divided by 5. So he's doing 162 per month. I think that's a fair enough to say like he's really out there trying to do it.
Rating.
This is 5 stars.
The conversations.
Some great conversations.
Shift from trashy.
Trash there we had to deal with.
To the tasty.
Raviolis.
Forming friendships along the way.
I've lived 2 homes my whole life.
He does this in his own car.
Everything okay? All right. Be safe for me. Have a good day. All right.
On his own time.
Gas is high. You'll need new tires.
But it's worth it, he says, to learn more about issues like food insecurity and housing.
And then the conversation then comes back to me. Hey, so what do you do? What's your thoughts on the changes you've seen?
Well, I think it's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
You know, some of it's good, some of it's bad.
Folks are very opinionated. And some folks love to really give their opinion.
Okay, it's a little boring, but he did give me a great idea. If I ever wanted to run for mayor, what I would do is I would drive around. I would ask people politically safe questions, like, you know, what are some things you're looking forward to? What are some things that like aren't happening in like this city that you want to happen? And then I would make videos and use that as my platform to get votes. That is actually a pretty good idea. Delaware County mayor. All right, so Delaware County. We're gonna do some. We're gonna do AI first. How much does the Delaware County mayor make per year? The salary of the mayor of Delaware County varies depending on specific county. For example, the mayor of Delaware County, Pennsylvania, earns $11,500 per year, while the mayor of Delaware County, Indiana, I guess there's multiple Delaware counties. Where is this? There's not much information here. Well, either way, these numbers aren't that great. So he probably is doing this in addition to making money. I didn't know mayors don't make that much money. Most paid mayors in America. San Francisco, 87. Whoa. What? Whoa, $500,000. That's a lot of money. But it drops off pretty quickly. This is closer to what I would assume. I don't even know how pay is determined. I don't want to get too far off on tangents. I saw Tristan's hand twitch when he heard Uber's alert go off. It's just, you know, when you do it long enough, you just the sounds make you go crazy. Ron says that's awesome on the mayor's part. Andy Griffith would have drove Rideshare in Mulberry if it was back then. Is this live? Glitch Dash. Yes, this is live. I'm as live as it gets. This is not a recording. Here we go. Moving on to the next topic. Uber versus working at Kohls. I have mixed feelings on this, and I'm curious to how you guys will feel about it. So a 60-year-old Uber driver explains why burnout and poor customer tipping led her to take a part-time job at Kohls. This is her. This is the Grand Canyon. If you've never been to the Grand Canyon, it will change your perspective on life, and I super recommend going. We went in October, and the weather was perfect. So if you're going to go then. All right, we're going to have to use the readability app because the ads on this is crazy. All right, here we go. Not interested. Susan, a single mom in Cincinnati, Ohio, started driving part-time for Uber in 2016, in addition to her full-time job to support herself and her son. But she said lower pay, poor customer tipping, and high vehicle expenses have started to take a toll on her income. She's been driving less since early November, when she started working part-time at Kohls for $15 an hour. So she's trading her rideshare time for a job that's paying $15 an hour. For me, that's not enough money. If you want to get me off the road, you have to pay me at minimum $25 an hour, but comfortably, my comfortable minimum would be like $30 an hour. Susan is one of the millions of Uber and Lyft drivers in the US who, due in part to fluctuating customer demand and tips, can't depend on a consistent paycheck. As a result, many are calculating their earnings after expenses to ensure driving is worth their time, as they should. This is what you should be doing. Driving for Uber is not advantageous anymore, the 60-year-old told Business Insider. I do it as a side hustle and I'm hoping to eliminate it altogether in 2024. She asked that her last name not be included for professional repercussions. So I'm down with this. I'm down with all drivers having an exit strategy, but you need to have a good exit strategy. It needs to be realistic and it needs to walk you into something that's going to earn you more money than rideshare, not something that's going to earn you the same amount of money as rideshare. Susan made $18,000 last year, according to a tax document viewed by Business Insider, and said she drove roughly 15 to 20 hours per week. She estimated that she earns between $22 to $25 before accounting for expenses like gas and maintenance, and about $16 to $18 per hour after. So at the low end, she's saying what, $6 per hour in expenses. If that's after expenses and taxes, that's reasonable. That's about what I average in expenses, but I average more than she does in income. So I'll do about $6 to $7. I actually have a spreadsheet. All right, I'll pull the spreadsheet up. I'll do it later. We'll stick to this. But her expenses seem reasonable. While that's a few more dollars an hour than her gig at Kohls, the added wear and tear on her vehicle and frustration with customers who are stingy with tips might not be worth it for her. I feel like driving is less stressful than Kohls, but everyone has their preferences. Between October 9th and November 6th, Susan received an average of $1.39 in tips from her 100 rides. That's pretty low. That's actually really bad. For an overall tip rate of 12%. I don't know I don't see how an average of from. Okay, so every ride she averages $1.39 per ride. Okay, that's not bad. That's not horrible. It's not great, but it's not bad. That's compared to the 15% to 20% tip range many customers live at restaurants. For people who get paid like $4 an hour, that's not a good comparison. She said tipping has gotten worse since the height of the pandemic, and that's fair too. It's hard to look at someone in my back seat with a designer bag, newest iPhone, smelling designer perfume, and nothing left from my time picking you up safely and getting you to your destination, she said. I have been stunned to see the lack of tipping anymore. Tipping for me is extra. I will always appreciate tipping. I will never require tipping. It's always been icing on the cake for me. And in order to not feel resentment, you have to live that way. If you're hoping people tip you and you're not getting tipped, you're just stirring up negative emotions in yourself, and those negative emotions are gonna convince you to go work at Kohls instead of doing what you're doing. You're not getting tipped at Kohls either. So Uber's flexibility is great, but drivers need to understand their market. I agree. Uber's upfront fares feature went live in Cincinnati last year. Susan said she's had more information about a trip's pay and destination before deciding whether to accept it or decline. But she said she's earning less per mile driven than before the feature was implemented. I suspect so. Okay, there are two things I think are happening. One, upfront pay was a disguise for a pay decrease, right? But in the same breath, with drivers seeing how much they're gonna make for a ride before taking the ride, I also believe that a percentage of drivers are shooting themselves in the foot more often because they think it's a bad ride, right? A ride could be bad on paper. Like I have a short where I'm starting at my home and I want to go downtown, which is about 25 minutes from my home. It's Friday night. I know that's where the money's going to be. So I use the destination filter and it makes me drive like 15 minutes to pick up someone at the airport, which is about halfway to downtown, and then take downtown. Now I know that despite that this ride isn't the greatest ride, it's putting me where I will get great rides, right? But a lot of drivers, when I put that, I have a video of it on my YouTube channel where I literally ask, hey, is this a good ride? And most of them say no, because they don't understand the context of, hey, I need to be downtown Charleston. This ride is getting me to downtown Charleston. The alternative was driving down there for free. This is a great ride because it's putting me where I need to be. And some rides do that. Some rides take you out of bad areas and put you in areas where there's a higher demand. And a lot of people don't see that. So I do think upfront earnings for people who don't know their market well enough, like it can be a double-edged sword depending on how they use it. When asked whether the upfront fares is impacting drivers' earnings, an Uber spokesperson didn't address the specific question, but pointed to its November earnings call, where the company said drivers' earnings levels are high at about $33 per utilized hour across the US. That's probably like whenever someone's in their car. So there, that could be a weird statistic to throw out. Susan's top piece of advice for Uber drivers is to understand your market. I scream this so often. Find out if you are driving in the upfront fare program, learn what is logical to pick up and what benefits you, she said. Take advantage of this program and start to knock rides off that aren't worth your time. Yes, but everyone's going to have a different interpretation of what rides are worth their time. Despite her recent challenges with Uber, Susan said having control over her hours has been a major perk. This is one of the main reasons I do it. I probably made more money per hour as a district manager, but the flexibility that I have, not having to worry about employees and not being a salaried employee, gives me more wiggle room to what I'm trying to achieve with my life. Before she began driving in 2016, she said she worked part-time as a grocery store cashier. The flexibility of Uber compared to her 20-hour-a-week structured schedule appealed to her at the time. Susan's part-time job at Kohls only runs through the holiday season, but she said she's considered staying on next year if given the opportunity. If not, there's a good chance she'll start driving more again. I consider going back to Amazon this holiday season. Like I said, December can be pretty slow once the college students are gone, tourism drops, people aren't getting married as much in the winter, and I really did enjoy my time at Amazon. I was like the fittest I've ever been since I quit football. But the pay's just not good enough. It's $20 an hour. It's 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. And yeah, I'm sure I could get 8 hours. And if I was looking towards getting promotion, I'm pretty sure I can get promoted in less than a year. And then they pay pretty well once you're promoted. But I decided that working overnight Friday to Saturday, losing those hours instead of like being downtown, it's just not worth it. I'd rather focus on rideshare and focus on YouTube. She says, I'm getting burned out, but it's a great side hustle for some money. So I'm in the middle, right? I kind of agree with her. I see where she's going. She's kind of testing the water. I wish she had a more dedicated plan. I wish she said, okay, this isn't where I expected my life to be at this point in time, right? So what can I do to do something like that's at the crossroads of what I'm good at and it's going to make me a lot of money? I wish she would do that and then use Uber and Lyft as a stepping stone to step into that field. That's what I'm doing here with YouTube. And that's really what I'm pushing for my subscribers to do as well. Before we move on to the next topic, we're going to go through some comments. The next topic is Uber couple making 6 figures. Ron says Cole has health insurance benefits, Uber in smaller markets, no benefits. I'm gonna disagree with you there. So there's Obamacare, which I have. Because of how rideshare driving is set up, our taxable income is so low because of the mileage write-off. I pay $20 a month for health insurance. Now, it's not the best health insurance, but it gets me my glasses. It gets me whatever I need as a diabetic. It gets me my access to checkups. It gets me if I were to need like a life-saving surgery that costs like $100,000. I think my deductible is like 20 grand. So yeah, that still sucks, but I wouldn't be like millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hole if I had cancer. I'm glad you brought that up because right now until like December 15th, that's I gotta pull this up for you guys. This is important. This is important stuff. When does open enrollment end for Obamacare? It's not really called Obamacare anymore. So this is from healthcare.gov, government website. So these are important dates. I made videos about them last year. They didn't do well because it's boring. Who cares about health insurance? But it's important. Like this is how you like protect your assets. So November 1st or November 27th, open enrollment starts for your health coverage for the next plan year. First day you can re-enroll in, or change health plans through the marketplace. Coverage can start as soon as January 1st. December 15th is the last day to enroll or change plans for coverage to start January 1st. So you have 20-ish more days before if you want to have coverage that starts in January. And then they even give you a second period. So if you miss December 1st, you can still until January 15th, you have another segment of open enrollment that starts February 1st. So if you don't have insurance and you are a rideshare driver, you need to at minimum price this out, because even though I just got married this year, getting health insurance through this is still cheaper than going through my wife's plan. So if you think you can't afford it, I want you to confirm whether you can or whether you can't afford it by it's going to change state to state. Like where I would go to fill out this application is going to be different for you if you're in a different state. So 100% do this. It's going to go based off of your taxes. So be honest. Do not lie. It's going to be based off of what they think you spent this year or what you think you made this year. And then when you get your taxes back, they're going to compare your taxes for next year to that information and then adjust it accordingly. So make sure you're telling the truth. Mike asks, where do you buy used? Would you ever buy from Carvana? I sold to them, but not bought. No, I wouldn't buy from Carvana. I'll show you where I would go. I would go right to Facebook. I'm going to Facebook. I'm going to their marketplace. I'm doing it off screen right now, but as soon as I get to where I need to go, I will show you guys what exactly I'm doing. All right, I think this is safe enough. All right, so I would just go here. I'm searching Prius. I know it's a little more risky to do it this way, but if you do your due diligence and you do the work and like the groundwork to figure out what you should be looking at, like you want to do research on what are common problems with this particular year, that like you really want to know what car you have in mind. What car do I want? What year am I aiming for? And what is my budget, right? So this is actually not too bad. It's not the Prius 5 that we talked about. It's a 2015, 8,500. I could probably get them to knock it down a little bit. 148,000 miles. Your Prius on average is going to do about 250,000 to 300,000. How long does a Prius last? Miles. See, between 200,000 and 250,000. So you do need to weigh that, right? You do need to expect some level of problems, but you can also talk to the person. You can also pull a Carfax on certain cars and you can see like what's what. Clean title. You want to make sure it's always a clean title. No, Uber and Lyft do not use rebuilt titles. Now, if you are doing food delivery, they don't really care what kind of car you drive. So you can get a rebuilt title on a car. Like if a rebuilt title is just where insurance says this car is not fixable, and insurance will put a lot of cars as unfixable for like very, very small things. But you do want to like do your research into your cars. You probably want to have a mechanic friend that you can take with you. Some places will even let you, both parties agree to take it to a mechanic, and whatever the mechanic says, that's what's there. So that it does require some extra work, right? 7,000, 150K miles. It's a little older, but this is the Prius 4, which is slightly bigger version, not that big. But this is where I would go about it. But this is also cash. Like I said, I'm a cash person now. I'm not walking into a dealership. I'm not a huge fan of dealerships. They have their own markups. But if you're not trying to do cash, you can't do it this way, right? Prius C, you can't use Prius C for Uber and Lyft. And if something looks too good to be true, just dive deeper. You know, sometimes people's like their wife passed away and this was their car. They're just trying to get rid of it, or they can't afford the payments anymore. Nothing's wrong with the car. You just have to do a little digging sometimes. And sometimes you can go around to different cities. Like this is Charleston, but I know that the Priuses in Nashville are cheaper. I don't know why. It's just how it is. And I wouldn't buy cars in like certain parts of Florida. Like if you know that area was susceptible to a lot of ocean flooding, because then you're talking about rust and things like that. Like you do have to put a lot of extra work into it. But if you want to save money, that's where you're saving money on that extra work. Ron says anybody can get Obamacare. It's not just Uber, Lyft, benefits. That's while true. Uber and Lyft drivers, like because of the mileage write-off, the tax write-off, we usually qualify for cheaper coverage compared to people who are other kinds of independent contractors that don't have as much write-off. We as Uber and Lyft drivers are capable of making a lot in tax-free money just because the government thinks we spend 65 cents per mile, but for every cent under 65 cents per mile that you actually spend on expenses and save, that's like a tax-free cent. So the cheaper you run your business is the more you'll save on your taxes and you'll make more tax-free dollars. That's really where the benefit of being a rideshare driver comes in. Carvana is terrible. I agree. Carvana is terrible. I bought my car from a guy on Facebook, my Tesla Model Y 2022. Tell me more about that. Like, why was he selling it? Could you just not afford it? That sounds like someone got the car and they were in over their head, and then here we are. I got to get rid of it. I don't do dealerships. Except if it's cash, or you have to have good credit with a credit union. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't do debt, so that to me, even going to a credit union would be equivalent. They ship flooded cars around the country. That's unfortunate. I would definitely like make sure. Oh, he got a Rivian. Oh, so he just has money, and he's just like, all right, next toy. The Rivians are nice though. The Rivians are nice. All right, so let's see where we at. I need to make a video about this. I know it's not gonna get a lot of views, but even if one person sees this health insurance stuff and they go sign up, for me, that's worth it. That's worth the time and effort. All right, so Uber couple making 6 figures. This one was wasn't a lot of news going on during Thanksgiving, but this one was an interesting one. I haven't watched this video, so I don't really know what they're gonna play, but we'll give it a shot. All right, so while that's happening, wife said he had to get rid of it, got it with 14K miles. I guess he bought both, and she's like, nah, you don't need both. Except this is I'm an unbroken driver, by the way. Is that you on YouTube or something? What does that mean, unbroken driver? Nice. I haven't heard of your channel before, but I subscribe to any rideshare people I see. So you guys go over there and check him out. See what he's talking about. You're in LA. See what the heat zones. Okay. Well, welcome and thank you for participating. Still working on like speaking better and enunciating better. All right, so we're back here. We're over here. All right, let's see what this says.
Holiday shopping season has now arrived. And with inflation still high, one local family is going the extra mile to make sure they get presents for their loved ones this year. When Emily Rogers picked up her first Uber ride 2 years ago, she didn't realize just how much she would enjoy it.
I like talking to people from all around the world.
And last year, when inflation was at an all-time high, she says it helped her buy essential needs.
Gas went up, apartment prices went up, cars went up, everything went up.
And even gifts for loved ones.
If I drive during the holidays, I can add easily an extra couple $100s a week. So that not only helps myself, but it helps me get stuff for my grandson, who was born last year.
She was seeing so much success that her son David and daughter-in-law Natasha started driving for Uber too.
Once I saw her start and then him start and saw the profits that they were making, it was kind of a no-brainer to start driving with Uber.
According to Uber, last year, 45% of new drivers said affording the holidays was a factor in starting ride-sharing. Natasha and David work for the platform full-time and say it's really profitable.
Both of us clear more than $5,000 a month just from Uber. So together, driving for Uber, we're making 6 figures.
Now the whole family is using the app, and they tell me this year's holiday season won't drain their bank accounts.
Ride with Uber. You drive, let me be your designated driver.
In the most recent quarter, Uber reported driver earnings being up 24% compared to a year ago. In Las Vegas, I'm Jaewon Jung.
I'm actually gonna move to Vegas, maybe in about a year, and we'll see what it's about out there. But you think stage scripted? I mean, it's probably a stage and scripted, but if the information is real, then to me it's kind of like whatever. If they actually went out and made $5,000, I mean, making $5,000 isn't difficult if you're in a decent market, right? Like we did the math earlier, 5,000 divided by 4, that's $1,250 a week. Like you can do that. Let's say it takes you 50 hours to do that. That's $25 an hour. You can do that in my opinion, most major markets. So if 2 people are doing that, right, that's $10,000 a month multiplied by 12. That's $120,000 a year. Even if they fall short some months and they're doing like 8,000 and change, they can still make over 100K per year. So it's not unreasonable. Like me as a solo person doing 100K, like I get flack for that and I understand that. But if 2 people were to do that, I can understand. Like it's not that difficult to happen. But man, that mom, she looks good for her age. Either she had kids real young and then her kids had kids young. She looks really good for her age. But I like this is stories I like seeing, right? I mean, we can have our criticism, we can have our disbeliefs on stuff like this, but this, like, I'm tired of, like, when every story is about, the lady who says I'm gonna go work at Kohls because there's no money out here, but you have drivers out here who are working the system, and then honestly, like it's a catch-22. Like Uber and Lyft do take advantage of drivers, right? They're not splitting the business fairly, but there's still a way for you to take advantage of the current situation to like improve your own life. So I'm all here for it. I'm all here for stories that encourage people to go out there and make more money. I know people think it's gonna create more competition, but that's fine. The people who I talk to, I believe that, you know, these are the people who are striving to be the best, and then these people will overcome competition regardless. Like it might make it harder, but we still find new ways to get it done. So I like that story. It's a little feel good story for the holidays. I'm with it. And it's a nice indicator for when I go to Las Vegas, because I'm going to be doing that soon. So when I'm focused on getting out of debt, and then I'm going to start planning to live over there. I want to live on the West Coast just because I've spent most of my life on the East Coast, and I just want to see what's out there. And I think Vegas is a good hub for that. There's no state income taxes. There's legal things out there that I probably partake in. It's close to California without living in California. I think California is poorly ran. I think that the taxes are insane, but I do want to experience some of those cities. And I think living in Vegas is a good city that's not California to be able to access those places. So it's not going to be a long-term move because I am concerned about the water shortages over there, but it is somewhere I am interested in living. So I'm here for it. I'm looking at the comments. Rideshare Professor didn't believe this video was true, or is Las Vegas a golden market and few know? I went to visit Las Vegas. Whenever I visit somewhere new, I'm always looking at my Lyft map. And if you're willing to stay awake overnight when people are out there partying, you're going to make money. And they do have their downtimes, right? They have times where the tourism isn't as strong as it could be. But overall, I don't see why I couldn't make more money in Vegas than I do in Charleston. In Vegas, you have to have higher requirements to become a driver. You have to get like your business license and your certifications. In Charleston, you just need to get like an inspection at like a Jiffy Lube to make sure your brake lights are working, you know? So when the barrier of entry is higher for you to become a driver, chances are there will be less drivers as a result. And if you are willing to like take advantage of that, I don't see why you couldn't make money. Like you're right, your Pootie Tang of Charleston, don't leave. I got to, man. I'm not even from Charleston. I'm from New York. I lived in Jamaica. I lived in Florida. I lived in Atlanta. I can't stay still. The world is too big, man. I can't stay in one place. All right, so Vinny says, did they show proof of the earnings? I didn't see it. So that's a great point. I will say all of the Business Insider articles that we've read today said that they've confirmed it themselves. And I do think it's important for these news publications to show proof. And they didn't show proof. So if you're skeptical, I get it. I don't think it's unreasonable, but I get it. I can't, you know, can't blame me for not believing in them. They need to do their due diligence. Steph says the opportunity to drying up fast and fast, unfortunately, and I agree with you. And more people are becoming aware of it. And then these companies want to transition into self-driving cars. And sure, that might take 10 more years, but every year is a step closer to that happening. And like they're still testing it, you know? So we need to be aware of it. We need to have an exit plan. Arizona is nice as well. I think I drove through Arizona just to get to the Grand Canyon, but don't hold me on that. I don't really know my geography on that side of the world too well. I can deal with the heat there. So in Charleston, we have humidity and it's really bad. I'd rather have the dry heat because once you hit the shade, it feels like a little different. Like Vegas feels more like an oven, whereas Charleston feels more like a jacuzzi. I think Phoenix is the better market, maybe, but they don't have tax-free money, right? I want to work. Vegas sucks. I can't. Thanksgiving was slow for Southern Cali. More drivers on the road and less demand. I think food delivery is the move for Southern Cali during holidays. I do want the opportunity to meet you in person before you move again. We'll make it happen. We can definitely make it happen. We'll do a little meetup. Maybe I'll meet up everyone at the airport where everyone likes to hang out. All right, so moving on. We only have pretty much one story, and then I want to go through some cities using Solo and showing what other drivers have like literally been making. Like it's not fake, it's not made up. It's literally being pulled from their apps. So this is about why rideshare drivers are worried over the EV vehicle mandate. This is what I was talking like in New York about, like the whole charger thing. So this is kind of more perspective. For those of you who aren't up to date, New York City got sued by Uber and Lyft drivers pretty much, and they had to make a bunch of like new changes. But in addition to that, by 2030, New York wants 100% electric vehicles, like for their rideshare. And something they did, which is what they got sued for, was they said, all right, so in some places you have to have a business license to do rideshare. In New York City, it's kind of called like a TLC plate, and they create a cap on how many TLC plates can exist. And I believe it's like 75,000. So 75,000 Uber and Lyft drivers at any given point in time. But they removed the cap if you have an electric vehicle to incentivize drivers to go get an electric vehicle. The taxi commission encompasses rideshare as well. They were not happy with that, so they sued them and they had to put a block on it. But before the block went public, which was like last week Monday, or maybe the Monday before that, a bunch of drivers were trying to go to Tesla to get a VIN number so that they can submit their TLC application before the block went into place. So now the block is in place, and we're just awaiting court dates to see what's going to happen. So I just want to keep up with that story, and I want to share this perspective. I think this article has a very good perspective. Zoom in a little more. Mayor Eric Adams plans to fully convert New York City's rideshare fleet to electric or wheelchair accessible vehicles by 2030, as Uber and Lyft drivers concerned about the impact on their wallets and lack of charging infrastructure in the city. This is a real concern. I didn't understand it until I started diving deeper into it like a week ago. The Green Rides Initiative, which we can peek at it for a second. They have this little fast facts feature down here. This initiative lays crucial groundwork to making our city cleaner. NYC's Taxi and Limousine Commission will guide the rollout of these rules. All rideshare vehicles will need to comply by 2030. Beginning in 2024, which is next year, in a month, 5% of all high volume for hire trips will need to be through vehicles that are zero emission or wheelchair accessible. I don't know what this means, so I'm going to ask AI. What does this mean? It might need more context. Starting in 2024, a new rule will require that 5% of what is a high volume for hire trip, is that like just rideshare, in New York City be completed in vehicles that are either zero emissions. This means that Uber and Lyft drivers will need to use electric vehicles or wheelchair accessible vehicles for a certain percentage of their trips. The percentage of trips that must be completed in these vehicles will increase gradually. Okay, so it's saying at least, so if there are 80,000 Uber and Lyft drivers, 5% of that need to be, so, all right, we know the TLC is what, 75,000? What is 5% of 75,000? 5% of 75,000 is 3,750. To calculate this, you can, well, yeah, thanks. How many EVs are under TLC in NYC? So TLC is Taxi Limousine Commission. You have to have a Taxi and Limousine Commission plate. They're currently over 1,100. So they're beating it now. So they are beating it. The benchmark would then rise to 15% in 2025 and 25% in 2026. The requirements will increase yearly by 20% points until the end of the decade, where 100% of all rides will be under the guidelines. These measures will help advance the goals we set in our PLA NYC initiative, which is guiding our long-term strategic climate plan. All right, so that just gives you a rundown of why they're doing it. The Green Rides Initiative will mandate that Uber and Lyft progressively give priority to electric vehicles when dispatching rides. Now, if I ever move back to New York City and I want to be a rideshare driver there, I might consider getting an electric car just so that I can drive quicker, despite the fact that it's more expensive to operate a electric car than a hybrid. I wish they would add a hybrid to this, right? Help phase that in. I definitely would do that. New York City is one of the best paying per mile places for rideshare, and they just got sick pay. And they just got, if you get deactivated, there needs to be like a clear path to reactivation. They just had a huge win. Like you can accrue vacation time. By 2030, these companies will have to dispatch 100% of their rides to EVs. The plan was unanimously approved by the Taxi and Limousine Commission on October 18th. Supporters of this initiative say it will push the city towards its ambitious climate goals, which include an 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Cost concerns. City officials have made repeated assurances that the Green Rides initiative will come with no new costs for rideshare drivers. However, many drivers are skeptical that the city will deliver on the promise. I'm not going to dive into that yet. Bronx-based driver Hibbert Harris, 54, said the transition can't be done without impacting drivers financially. Thank you. This is exactly what it's going to get towards. And noted that the project will affect thousands of drivers, myself among them. We are very worried. The primary challenge would be the upfront cost of buying a new electric vehicle. Harris said, noting that they are still more expensive than gas-powered vehicles. I don't think I need to prove that. I agree with that. He does not think he will be able to save up the necessary funds before the first benchmark kicks in next year. In September, the average price of a new electric vehicle in the United States was $50,683, compared with $47,899 for all vehicles, according to Kelley Blue Book, though the price disparity is wider for some of the most commonly driven vehicles for rideshare work, like the Toyota Camry and the Tesla Model 3. And then on top of that, right, this is probably comparing new to new, which that's not what I would do. I would be comparing used Tesla, which there's the market, like Tesla's retained their value so well just because they get over the year updates, that your Tesla could actually be worth more than what you paid for it. So, and then there's Teslas are they're still relatively new. So you're not going to find a huge market of used cars like you would for the Camry, right? Camry, that's like the de facto Toyota car. Like you can go back and find different levels of them, different prices, different uses. Like there's the selection of Camrys at the lower price end is going to be like huge compared to what the amount of like stock you'll find for a used Tesla. So like this is not even an apples to apples comparison. Like a driver can still go get a $15,000 Camry and still squeeze 100,000, 150,000 miles out of it. So like that's not being considered in this analysis. I believe in saving the environment and everything, so I'm okay with the initiative, but I think the plan might be a little forced. They are going to start taking rides from us about 6 months after they announced it. So I agree with this take. I think electric cars, I think overall they're great. They're too expensive right now. That's my main like concern. I can be in the middle when it comes to range, but the price of just owning one is too expensive. A rideshare driver, I'm not going to butcher their name, Saf. I'm going to go with Saf. A rideshare driver voiced similar concerns at a public hearing on September 20th, saying he still has $30,000 to pay off on his current vehicle. That's disgusting. Spoiler alert, I'm like $5,000 away from paying off my current car, and I have the money to do it. I'm gonna make a video about it, so you heard it here first. We're gonna celebrate together. By the time I finish paying it, I got to worry about buying a new electric vehicle, which is another loan added to all the expenses and struggle we have to go through just to make ends meet. I get this. The reason why I'm just not like the life you can live when you don't rely on debt is different. You start thinking about things differently. So before my car hit the dust, my car's been pretty excellent, right? I'm still saving little by little for when it does go away. And that's something you have to take debt off the table. And then you realize you don't have that safety net and you start treating your finances differently. So this guy, he's already worried about it and he's still $30,000 in debt with his current car. He needs to, one, start aggressively paying off that car, and then two, start saving for the next one if this is what he wants to do long term. Alternatively, his plan should be to figure out a way to escape rideshare so that by the time his car dies, it doesn't even matter. That's really what he needs to do. City officials argue that there are many options to defray the costs, including savings on gas and maintenance accrued over the lifetime of the vehicle. I don't think it's enough, right? $15,000 Prius versus a $30,000 Tesla. I have to make $15,000 before they even out. And I'm not saving $15,000 in gas over like 2 years. It's probably gonna take like 3, 4, 5 years to even cancel out. TLC spokesperson James also pointed out that there are state and federal incentives available to drivers who purchase electric vehicles, that they're expected to reach price parity with gas-powered vehicles in the coming years. There are some of these. I know California has some good ones. In worst case scenario, he said the city could change its benchmarks for the program. That's fair. I would say New York City right now, with the exception of this, is probably the best place to be a rideshare driver. Not including cost of living, but just from like a lot of the benefits. We'll look at the benefits when we're done with this. Another way to soften the financial blow for drivers would be to adjust the city's minimum pay standard for rideshare drivers. Oh yeah, they just got a minimum pay pay rate of like, I think it's like $23 for Uber and Lyft. Let's see what it says. Driver pay rules. Oh, this is old, so I'll show you the new ones after as well. The standard enacted by the City Council 2018 is a formula that establishes a baseline rate that Uber and Lyft must pay drivers for each ride to ensure they do not have to shoulder the vehicle maintenance costs and other expenses by themselves. So this isn't even what I'm talking about. Because it was designed with gas-powered vehicles in mind, the standard may need to be adjusted to account for the expenses associated with an electric vehicle, said Parrott, who helped design the standard in 2018. Electric vehicles are still more costly than vehicles with internal combustion engines or hybrids. This is a fact. He said the expense factor of the standard needs to figure out how to accommodate that. That's cool that they're looking into it. Several council members have sponsored a resolution calling on the state to enact a surcharge on passengers to help pay for the conversion to electric and wheelchair accessible vehicles. You can do this, but New York's public transportation system is so strong that this might backfire. I'm concerned that the mayor is pushing a rule through without proactively setting up infrastructure and incentives that support our workers. One of the sponsors, Amanda, as much as we want and need to use electric vehicles, we have to make sure drivers have chargers and the financial incentives they need to use them successfully. So this is the charging challenges, right? We're touching on this all night tonight. The Green Rides initiatives will also have to overcome a shortage of charging infrastructure in the city. Fully charging an electric vehicle's battery can take anywhere from 30 minutes to many hours. There are roughly only 200 fast charging stations in the city, primarily in Manhattan. There's like one in the Bronx, with more than 80,000 rideshare drivers active each month, right? And they want those 80,000 rideshare drivers to be electric by 2030. Because drivers primarily live in the outer boroughs, they frequently lack access to nearby charging stations. Like I just said, there is one in the Bronx, which is wild. Brooklyn-based driver Alexandra said that the scarcity of chargers make it very difficult to use her electric vehicle for rideshare. And right, these rideshare drivers aren't the only ones with electric vehicles. New Jersey and New York on the East Coast are like hot spots for Teslas. She's a single mother and typically free to work when her child is in school. To access a fast charger, she heads from Coney Island in Brooklyn to John F. Kennedy Airport in Queens. That's maybe, with traffic, that could be like an hour and a half. I'm basically not able to work due to all the time I'm charging, she said at the TLC hearing in September. Upgrading the city's charging infrastructure will require major commitments from the public and private sectors, the TLC said in 2022 report. The TLC and the Department of Transportation are working to add curbside charging facilities around the city. Okay, I can see that working a lot better than just having to go to a dedicated hub. Like you can just park, have charging there. Brooklyn-based rideshare service Revel, which they're not doing really well right now, hopes to open an additional 300 publicly available charging stations by the end of next year. It will not be enough. We're going to need thousands, right? They currently have 200, and they're going to need thousands of fast chargers. The Revel spokesperson, rideshare drivers, more than almost any other group specifically, need fast charging. They can't interrupt earnings fares to charge 4 to 8 hours, which is like, if you're charging at home and you're not a rideshare driver, that's fine. You'll just trickle charge at home. It'll never be full. It'll never be empty, and you'll be okay. But fast charging is just incredibly scarce in New York, which is weird, right? You want to be the center for like green, but you're not putting the infrastructure down, and you're creating these laws without having these infrastructures. Some believe that addressing the shortage will require an Uber and Lyft to get involved in the charging game. I get it, but they're not the ones forcing the rule. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I'll have to let that simmer. Both companies have publicly said that they want their entire fleets to be electric by 2030. But this is because the government is pushing for it. It's not like they're only kind of coinciding with the government, because like even Canada said that, you know, all new car sales after 2030 will be electric. Like I don't think I'm making that up. Canada 2030, no more gas car sales. Like you might be able to get used cars maybe. What is Canada's ban on gas engines? In June 2021, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced Canada will ban the sale of new fuel-burning cars and light-duty trucks. And then even on top of that, right? So we have a major country on our hemisphere doing that. Which car makers will only make electric after 2030. So we have Volvo. Volvo has committed to phasing out all internal combustion engine vehicles from its global lineup by 2030. This includes hybrids. Wild. General Motors. Cadillac will become an all-electric brand by 2030. The company also plans to make Buick, Chevy, GMC, and other brands fully electric by 2035. Ford. All EVs in Europe by 2030. The company also plans to have 2/3 of its global sales be EVs. So like 2025, this is in 2 years. Jaguar. I don't know who's really buying Jaguar, but they're doing it in 2 years. I don't even know what this is. Chrysler, 2028, before 2030. Lotus, I know what Lotus is, not popular. Aston Martin, 2030. That's like that's high-end car. Bentley, high-end car. Buick, 2030. So like the infrastructure is not there for just rideshare drivers. How is it going to be there for everyone by 2030? They have a real problem on their hands. It's not going to happen if they're not helping their drivers get there, and charging infrastructure is part of that equation. So I've now determined how I felt about expecting Uber and Lyft to like put in on this, and nah, I don't see it. I don't see why they should be held responsible for it. It would be nice, right? It would be better for the drivers if they did, right? So let's separate those two things. But this is something that's coming from like government pressure. All these car companies aren't doing it around 2030 just because they want to. It's because they've seen that the government is doing weird things, and they're trying to get ahead of the government. So like the government needs to be responsible for making this happen. So is the 2030 target realistic? Man, I didn't expect myself to get this fired up about this. Although electric vehicles currently represent just 3% of the New York City rideshare fleet, drivers and experts are cautiously optimistic that the city can achieve its goal of 100% of electric vehicles or wheelchair accessible rideshare fleet in 7 years. What I will say about humans is that we're very bad at like prevention, but we're very good at reaction. So maybe everything I'm saying now, I'll get shamed, and I want to be shamed because this doesn't look good. It's definitely aggressive, but it is doable. The challenges are addressing people's concerns about range and reliability and being able to find a charger. Familiar agree that 2030 goal is potentially achievable. If all the right things happen that should happen, it can get done. Adding that success will depend on buy-in from others in the industry to see New York as the important market that it is. Even Harris, but I also want to say if New York City is going to struggle with this, you know, like other places might struggle too. It could be like New York City has a huge population. It could just be a population density issue. Maybe won't be such a big deal in like Charleston, but a lot of America would have to be reworked to facilitate so many electric cars on the road. Even Harris, despite his reservations, agreed that 2030 target is reachable. I think they can do it. I plan to be among the people who comply. All right, so there's this. We're going to continually like follow up with this and look at different perspectives. We'll take a second and look through some of the comments. The Driven Dad says, "Yo, welcome to the party. Airport pickup, putting me over $350 for the day. We'll listen in this trip. That's dope. Also, I don't know what music service you use, but if you guys use Google Music or YouTube Music, you can actually find this in like all of my podcasts and like podcast audio form. I'm gonna start ripping the audio from these videos, and then I'll get it out to Spotify and all these different podcast apps so that you can play these for you know, while you're driving. And if you're a passenger in a rideshare driver's car right now, please tip that person. They deserve it. They don't make as much money as you think they do. Uber and Lyft are taking it. You can Google it and find out yourself. Ron says, I refer to Uber drivers that squat at the airport as buzzards. I'm gonna do a video where for 1 week, like from the moment I go online to the moment I go offline, I'm just gonna do airport rides. Like I'm gonna go to the airport, go online, pick someone up, either use the destination filter to get back to the airport, or just turn the app off, go to the airport, and then I'll just make a video about my experiences and my earnings. Because I really want to put that, at least for our airport. Different airports will have different results, but I think that'll be a good video to have. Larry Banks says, Uber deactivated me wrongfully because they said my insurance, which I updated on the app, was flagged as fraud. This is not true because I was using the Tesla rental program. What should I do? Harass them, bro. I had something on my driving record which prevented me from getting approved with Uber. And then I got it removed from my driving record, and I harassed them. I harassed them so much that they accidentally gave me access to another Uber driver's account. And I have video of it. Like, it's on my channel. But just keep harassing them, man. Like, Eventually, you will talk to someone who's competent, and it might take a while. But when it comes to making money, I would call them once a day. I'll call them once a day. Whatever proof you have, send it to them, mail it to them, keep harassing them, and just keep at it, man. That's all. Like, I'm not gonna say to lawyer up, but you could if you wanted to, if you think you have an actual case. But that's money. That's real money in a scenario where we're Uber and Lyft drivers because we don't have the greatest finances, right? That's just real. Mike says, Tristan, this is off topic, but how do you start your day? Like when you leave your house, do you set your destination filter towards the airport, given you start at around 6 a.m.? I do not start around 6 a.m. So if I'm going hard, I will try to start like 2, 3 a.m. Like if it's a Monday, like, so the week starts here in Charleston on a Monday, I'll wake up like at 2, 3 a.m. because I know that's when airport rides, people will need to get to the airport and there aren't enough drivers. So I know bonus zones will appear, right? As long as we're in season. So that's kind of when I will start. And I'll drive until like 7:30 a.m. when traffic gets thick. And I'll take a break. I'll either get breakfast or I'll just take an extended break, go home, take a nap, sleep. And then it depends on, like, if I'm trying to push like 80 plus hours a week, which I don't do every week, I'll probably go online by like maybe 10:30, and then I'll drive until maybe 2:30. If school's in session, that's when traffic is starting. And then I'll just stop until about 7, which is when traffic breaks. And then if I want to do a 12-hour shift, the best time for me to do a 12-hour shift Monday through Thursday is from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That way there's no traffic. You're doing the overnight. There are slowdowns, but if you are patient and get through those slowdowns, because like around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, even on Friday and Saturday, and I suspect this is when most people give up and go home, there's a time period where everyone who went out to party and eat dinner and whatever, they are where they plan to be for a few hours. So it gets slow, right? You pick them up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, you drop them off at the bars, but then it's slow all of a sudden. You muscle it out. Around like 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, that's like when the first wave of it being busy again starts in my market. So this is why it's important to know your market. You have to know you need to know where to be before the bonus zones appear. And then you're golden. And will they always appear? No, sometimes it's slower than it usually is. But if you know the habits of the people in your city, that's how you take advantage. If you're a driver that's reacting to surges, you're doing it wrong. You need to be like proactive with surges. Computer branch line, podcasts like this are great for catching up in the car. Yeah. My favorite podcast hasn't been podcasting for a very long time. And they used to podcast every day for like 3 hours a day. And then they just stopped. So I try to make these a little longer. I try to go a little in depth, and I'm going to try to be consistent with this. Community branch line says, Tristan, how's the 100,000 goal coming for this year? Have I missed any updates? You haven't missed any updates, but I've decided that I'm going to give people who show up to my live streams more information. I was going to put up a video out in January. I'm not going to hit it I'm not going to hit it for 2023, but I am going to try it again for 2024. Doing everything I've learned this year. So I'm currently finally editing a video where I drove from Key West, Florida to Maine. I'm not going to spoil too much about it, but that made it harder. I got really sick when I got to Connecticut, and my sickness, it was the flu, it wasn't COVID, but it was really bad. My sickness lasted for like maybe 3 weeks, so I couldn't drive. And then I had a lingering cough for about a month and a half, and I didn't feel comfortable driving with passengers in my car while coughing. So that set me back. One, I will say this is not excuse. I said I was going to do something, I didn't, and that's on me. I also got married this year. So that kind of, there's a lot of things that happened this year that kind of took me out of it and sent me back, but I still had the ability to kind of hustle and still accomplish it. But it started setting my YouTube channel behind. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to figure out my content strategy. I've decided the best way it was put to me, do what feels like water, right? So I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing several different topics in this podcast. I'm going to hand this over to my editor, and then he'll chop it up into different categories. So that way I can still post, right? I have to lower the quality, right? You guys know what quality I'm usually looking for, but I have to lower my quality, and so that I can still put content out, because I don't want me chasing a goal with Uber and Lyft for a video that I'm making for my YouTube channel to hurt my YouTube channel by making me post less. So I needed to solve for that. And I've been taking this time to try and get ahead. So like, that's what I'm doing right now. My whole November has been, let me get ahead in content. And then I actually might start in December to with the earnings that I'm going to do for next year. So I am still going to try to do the 100K. It's going to be harder this just because of how the pay structure has changed, and like there's not as much street bonuses going out as there used to be when I first started. So I know it's going to be harder. I still think it's doable, and if I'm consistent, I think I can find a true balance between working hard for Rideshare Lyft, working hard for Uber, and working hard to be a good husband. You know, I also want to have a kid as well, and I really want to be debt free before I have my kid. And if I'm able to hit that 100,000 goal in 1 year with Uber and Lyft, all that money's gonna go towards paying off my debt, and I'll be debt free. So there's a lot of different goals mixed into it, and I'm spending the rest of 2023 to prepare myself for 2024. You guys should do it too. Don't wait till 2024 to start with your 2024 goals. Like, try to find your structure now, like so you can like have your processes ironed out, so that by the time 2024 is here, you can hit the ground running. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm gonna own up to it. I'm gonna go on video telling them that I didn't hit the goal. I'm gonna share why I didn't hit the goal, but not as an excuse, but as a like problem solve. Like, this is what went wrong, and this is how I'm gonna make sure it doesn't go wrong again. So thank you for following up with that. Mike says 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. but not on weekends, just weekdays. Yeah, 7 p.m. 7 a.m. is my favorite time for like Monday to Thursday. On Fridays, I like Friday into Saturday, there's not a lot of airport rides Saturday morning, so there's no reason for me to be out past like 4 a.m. You know, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. At that point, the booty calls are over. They're home. You might be picking up some people who like make coffee for the early risers, like people who work at Dunkin' Donuts and things like that. I might do it on Saturday. I might do like more of a 9 to 9, just because Sunday in my town is a very strong airport day, and a lot of drivers aren't up at that time. So it's really good for that time period. But you also need to understand how breaks work. Like, you drive for 12 hours and then you have to take a 6-hour break to reset your clock. So you have to think about that sometimes, right? So sometimes I will like take an extended break just to time it correctly. It's hard for me to like put it in words right now without like seeing the numbers. But once you know your market, you'll be able to say, okay, I need to have, like, I've been driving all day and I need to take a break at 6 hours. And sometimes that might cut off a good time to drive in favor of a better time to drive. So it really comes down to knowing your market. Community branch line says, man, that's a bummer. I know you hit some speed bumps, but you're working through, and which is a testament of your grind. Being debt free would be awesome for your family. Take care and take money. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. It says, thank you. Can't wait to see the Key West main video. It confuses me. State to state regulation changes. Okay, so I will tell you that I couldn't drive Uber in any other state unless it was just like Uber Eats, which is boring. So for Lyft, as long as the requirements in your state supersede the requirements of other states, you can drive there. So for example, in South Carolina, I have to get an inspection, right? In Georgia, which is the state underneath South Carolina, I do not have to have an inspection. They have like one of the most lax laws. So as a South Carolinian person, I can drive in Georgia easy, but someone from Georgia can't drive in South Carolina unless they get the inspection. So it just depends state to state. What are the requirements, right? The requirements of South Carolina is, again, higher than North Carolina. So if a North Carolina person wants to drive in South Carolina, all they have to do is go to Jiffy Lube to get an inspection. But some states are really, really harsh. Like, so I could drive in Florida. Florida is just like Georgia, pretty non-existent on the what you need to do to drive there. I could drive in Florida. I can drive in Georgia. I can drive in South Carolina. I can drive in North Carolina. I could not drive in Virginia. So I drove someone from Charlotte to Virginia Tech. Beautiful up there. Absolutely beautiful. And I couldn't take another ride until I got to Delaware. So all the states in between Delaware and there were just states I just couldn't drive in. So I kind of just had to go through them. I couldn't drive in New York City. I could drive in Connecticut. I couldn't drive in Massachusetts, but I could drive in Maine. So, you know, and when that video comes out, we'll have more about it. But I literally just started editing it today. It's a lot of footage. I've never edited anything like this where I'm kind of like vlogging on the go, and it's a lot of footage. I have dash cam footage. I have like stories with passengers. It's gonna take me a little while, but I'm hoping to have it ready before I hit 10,000 subscribers or early January, whichever comes first. All right, so to close out the podcast session. We're gonna go through and see how much other people are making in different parts of the world. So this is my work phone. I'm gonna plug it into the computer, and what's gonna happen is that Samsung has this app called Samsung Dex, where it'll show you like what's on my phone in desktop format. So I'm able to access apps on my phone and show you guys. Now it's not that fast, and there might be some issues, but we'll see. Allow access to phone data. All right, fine. All right, so we have the solo app. I was playing around with it earlier just to make sure it would work on stream. I can't see the comments now, so, but it's okay. So this is the solo app. It's the linked, I have it linked in the pinned comment. It's free. There are certain features that you can only access with paying, but what I'm about to show you is free, right? So in order to get there, this is the home screen. I haven't been driving in November, taking it easy, focusing on my YouTube channel. You can go to Insights over here, bottom right, and it shows you my city. You can go to the leaderboard, right? So there are some caveats about this leaderboard. One, this is Monday, right? The Uber Lyft day starts on Monday, so this is day 1. But we can go to up here, and we'll just go back a couple weeks, and then we can see what people made in my city that like for the whole week, right? I haven't been driving. I'm ranked 123rd. So I actually have a screenshot that I want to show you guys as well. I gotta find it. Hold on. Taskbar, Gmail, Play. Oh, I didn't close it. Spark. Oh, this is, see, I'm still in the app. I need to get out of here. I think I gotta close it and come back. All right, I'm gonna close it for a second. I gotta show you this. So this is the week I made $3,000 in 1 week. You know, I made a video about it. You guys, I'll let you guys watch it when I'm done. But come on, I got too much going on. Here we go. Here we go. So the week I made $3,000. This is it. There are some like server issues where it resets on weird days. This was the Saturday, so there was still another day for me to go make money on that Sunday. But you can see that I made $2,500 in 6 days. There's NH. He comes here sometimes. He doesn't live in Charleston. He drives down, I think, from Charlotte, and then he just like hustles in our town during like busy seasons, and then he disappears for like 6 months. So he and I are anomalies for our city because we put in a lot of time, a lot of hours. This is like average 1,700, 1,500, 1,300. And I want to show you the average because this is back in August. And I'm going to bring you guys back to Samsung Desk so I can show you like what's recently been happening. And it's pretty similar, right? Give it a second. All right, so we'll go back over here. So we go to Insights. So we saw the average is about 1,500 for my city. So we go to Leaderboard, and then we're gonna go a couple weeks back. So this is November 6th through the 12th of 2023. It's right there. I'm sorry if the font's small. This is as big as I could get it. I tried. So the number 1 driver is 1,660. Number 2 is 1,300. Number 3 is 1,195. 1,200 pretty much. So these numbers are similar to what the average driver was making even back when I made $3,000. So this isn't like scientific math, but it's a signal, right? It's not a definite signal. It's a signal to me that I could have made $3,000 this week. This like just based off of when I last made $3,000, this is how much everyone else made. And this is what they're still making now. So I could probably make $3,000, right? And it would be a lot of hours. And I'm not saying you guys need to go. I just want to understand. I want us to have a base understanding of what's what, right? So now what I'm going to do is, what's the easiest way to do this? I guess we'll do it through here. So let's look at, okay. This might be a pain in the butt. Top 5 cities by population. All right, so we're gonna look at the top 5 cities by population, and we're gonna go to those cities in the Solo app and see how much drivers in those cities are making. So we have New York. We'll start off with New York. Now New York gets paid pretty well. But keep in mind my average, right? So you have all these cities right here. And we're just gonna have to scroll down till we hit the ends. This would obviously be a lot easier on the phone, but I don't have the things I would need to put my phone, to show my phone to you guys in a way that makes sense. I'm from Mount Vernon, it's my hometown. New York City. All right, so it still shows me at the front. I'm not seeing any data for New York City. That's weird. I hope it's not bugging out. It was working earlier. All right, let's do Chicago. And we're gonna hit some California cities too. All right, so Chicago showed up. So people in Chicago, Illinois, this guy made $2,008. Think about the average in my city. My average was like 1,600. So to me, it's a signal that if I were in Chicago, I could probably make a little more than 3,000. Like I said, my Charleston is like what I would call a mid-cap city. Chicago is a big city. A lot of people in Chicago. The more people you have, the more opportunity you have to make more money. But you also have more competition. But it also snows up there, so the surges can be better. But there's also different, like, Chicago's a dangerous city, and I'm someone who's from New York. I don't say that about a lot of places, but this is a signal to me that if I went to Chicago, I could probably make $3,000 there, right? Is that fair? Please let me know in the comments if that's like a fair connection. It's not a scientific connection. We don't know how many hours they worked. It doesn't display that information. I wish it did. So we're kind of just like we're guessing based off of what I could do here. What are people doing elsewhere? So we have Chicago. All right. We can do Los Angeles. And I know in Los Angeles, you guys have like insurance payouts or something like that. So that's a signal to me. If I'm making if I can make $3,000 in Los Angeles, if we don't know, I could probably make like close to 4 with that whole insurance payout. I don't really know how it works. I need to look into it. HIJKL. Who else has to say the alphabet to find places? There's Vegas. But let's do Los Angeles. So look at that. $2,453 Los Angeles. Now, again, we don't know. This person could work as many hours as I worked and came out with that amount of money. There's no way to truly know with this system. But if you live in Los Angeles and you're only making $1,000 a week, you need to come in here and start asking yourself, why? What am I doing wrong when other people in this city where I thought it was impossible to make this much money, how are they making this money? Now, some of this might be in the insurance, right? I don't know how it's all calculated. But to me, even if the insurance payment, I don't even know what the average insurance payment is. Like, I still feel like I might be able to hit $3,000 in Los Angeles, especially if I got insurance money. Like, the insurance money makes it easier than other markets, right? And then again, I need to do some more research, and maybe I'll do that on my next stream. But the number one person in Los Angeles, they made $2,453. The number two person, $2,068. Number three person, $1,870. Usually it shows what apps they use. Like you see, it says Lyft here. This is something like last night it wasn't doing this. I don't know why it's doing it now. But it's not just Uber and Lyft. It could be DoorDash. It could be all these different gig apps, but it's only gig apps. So this is why I think you guys need to make sure you have access to all the gig apps. And every now and then you play around with different ones. Like I've been trying Walmart Spark last week. I'm going to make a video about that to kind of see how I feel about it. And it's always nice to have multiple ones just in case you get banned. You never know what can happen. And certain holidays, those gig apps might be better than what you're usually doing. So you should be playing with them a little more. So we see Los Angeles. There's Beijing. We're going to keep it here in the States. So we're going to look at Houston. I remember someone last week wanted me to do San Diego. So I'm actually going to do that first, because this whole segment wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for that suggestion. So we're going to scroll down to the S's. San Francisco, San Diego. Wow. So San Diego made $3,365. That's wild. That to me is a signal. If I did my hustle, maybe I come over with the same thing. Maybe I could do $4,000. Who knows? And I really wish it was showing us what like apps they were using. And then we have number 2, 1,643. It is possible. Maybe this guy had a new bonus, right? Maybe he had $1,000 bonus on top of whatever it is because he's a new driver. We don't have that information. So having that information is important, but we can only make guesses at this point. And we have to like take a step back and say, okay, all right. So that was let's move to the next week to see what the average was. The top was 2,000. Let's move forward again. Top is 2,000. So we have people consistently making $2,000 in that market. So if that's not you, if you're struggling to make $1,000, you need to take a step back and say, what can I do to make more money, right? I keep telling people in my comment section who think I'm lying in my videos, I always tell them, look, man, believing that I'm lying is costing you more money than considering that idea that I might be saying the truth, right? And I'm in an industry where my goal is to help convince people to go out there and make more money. And sometimes I'm the one who has to convince people that they can make more money, even though if it would be easier for them to make more money if they just believe. Now, I understand skepticism. I think skepticism is healthy, but I think I'm the type of person who I focus on what I have control over and not like what I can't, like I'm not gonna, I don't think striking against Uber Lyft is gonna produce much. So I'm just gonna hustle. I'm just gonna do my thing in hopes that like it affects the things that I don't have direct control over. And that's what I really want people to do. All right, so let's move forward. We did San Diego. Let's do Houston. Texas is a state with a lot of population. All right, here we go. Houston, right here. So Houston, 1,726. That still beats what people in my market are making, which is the same market where I made $3,000. But again, we don't know how many hours they worked. Number 2 is 1,468. Number 3 is 1,449. And 4, 5, 6, 7, they're not far off. They're like a couple dollars off, right? Number 7 is 1,319. So there might be some Spark and Amazon Flex in here as well. So there might be opportunity to make a little more. I always assume I can make a little more than most people by putting in a little more effort. That's just what I found to be true. So let's do another California place. Let's do let's see. Let me see what's on this list. We did San Diego. Let's do Phoenix. Someone brought up Phoenix earlier. This is painful. Scrolling on the app designed for mobile is painful. I don't remember what I'm looking for. Phoenix. Of course. Sorry, guys. Ooh, Miami. We'll look at Miami next. I think Miami's hit or miss. Phoenix. So someone Phoenix, Arizona making $2,000. That signal to me that might be, depending on how many hours they worked, that might be possible to make $3,000, right? 1,700, 1,400 for number 3, doing Uber. So I'm look at the comments. I'm gonna look at what cities you guys are in, and maybe we'll. I need to find an easy way to like navigate out of this without closing everything. All right, look at the comments now. Doing what you say in the solo app. It says I need to upgrade to paid account, so I wanted to share by location. Anyone here in California able to see insights on free accounts? Is the solo app just USA? It's just USA, to the best of my knowledge. There's no UK towns that pop up in there. Mike, I'm gonna let my solo app I have a paid account. I've stopped paying for it, and I think it goes away in 7 days. So in about 7 days, I'll be able to confirm whether I can still see this or not. But yeah, I do want to talk about a spreadsheet that I made, and then I'm gonna get out of here. I will do this over here. It keeps coming back over there. Sheets. So if you see my latest featured video where it's me proving that I made that $3,000, I made a spreadsheet that I'm not a huge fan of some of the apps out there. I don't think they do a good enough job with tracking your mileage. I like to do it manually just because GPS issues can like have an impact on the accuracy of your information. And when it comes to getting audited, I want to make sure my information is as accurate as possible. I want the information on my odometer to match what's in my sheets. So I've made these sheets. It works automatically. You put your dates in. You put how many miles you started with. I put 100,000, right? And then how much you ended with, 120,000. And then it automatically calculates your miles. It automatically calculates your hours worked. I actually have one I filled out for last month. Let me pull that one out. Rideshare tracker spreadsheet. Okay, so here it is. This is the one I did for the video where I made $3,000. So it just, based off of the information you put in, it just automatically, figures it out for you. Let me zoom in here. So I honestly made it for myself, just because I wasn't happy with all these other apps. There was just like small things that were problematic, or they weren't like IRS compliant. And I wanted to make sure I made something that if I ever got audited, I could just hand this over and not worry too much about it. And if you guys want to have access to it, you can support me on Patreon. If I ever get there, log in. There we go. This is my Patreon. I'll link to it. And don't think of it as you paying for the spreadsheet. Think of it as you supporting me on my creative journey. I'm always going to have things here that is going to just be catered for you guys. Like if you get this spreadsheet and you support me for 1 month and you want to stop, that's fine. You'll have it. And if you ever want to get an update, like I plan on having a summary sheet for it. I plan on putting like estimated taxes on it, where you put in what you think your tax rate will be and it'll calculate how much money you need to set aside. I plan on like having, I plan on releasing products, and the first people that's gonna have access to these products, if I need people to test these products before I even put them out, it's gonna this is where you want to be. So if you find my information useful, or if I've helped you make more money, support me. I really appreciate it. It's not necessary. I'm not huge on sponsors. I don't want to be tied up in a company that does something awful. And so I've kind of declined on who I affiliate myself with. And I'd rather just be affiliated with my supporters. So I appreciate you guys. It was fun. This was another long one. There's a Rideshare podcast on Twitter that I'm going to go and hop into next. This is not Twitter. That is Twitch. Let's just do X. If you guys have time, if you guys are on Twitter, follow me. It's Tristan Thomas YT, like YouTube YT. And then Drivers Coast to Coast is the podcast. You can listen for a second. Got Chuck the Driver. He's another YouTuber. He has some good videos. Lynn, she's in my chat sometimes.
I wanted to kind of just reiterate what I earned.
Let's see if I can find the volume for this.
For those the 2 days. So again, Will, thanks to
I can't.
I had a
so go check it out. I'm gonna see if I can get the link, put it in here. Share.
So
Alright, so yeah, these guys are not pity party people. They are. Let's talk about experience. Let's be a little positive about the rideshare space. So go over there, tell them I sent you, and let's see what they have to say. Peace.
Hey Tristan, good to see you, man.
He just said hi to me.
And so the tips were through the roof. And it was just great.
Gotta figure out how to turn this off.
Though,